During a royal gathering, Crown Prince Edward suddenly announces the cancellation of his engagement to Princess Anastasia. The unexpected declaration shocks the nobles as everyone turns toward the future crown princess. Anastasia calmly asks for an explanation, but Edward dismisses her response and criticizes her attitude. The gathered nobles quietly observe as tension spreads throughout the hall. Edward introduces Amy as the woman he believes deserves to stand beside him. He praises Amy's kindness while claiming Anastasia lacks the qualities required to become the kingdom's future queen. Edward accuses Anastasia of bullying Amy and declares that everyone already knows about her cruel behavior. His supporters immediately stand behind him, making the accusation appear convincing. Edward concludes that Anastasia is unfit to become the kingdom's future queen and mother. Although whispers spread among the guests, Anastasia remains composed, silently enduring the public humiliation. After hearing the prince's accusations, Anastasia quietly understands the true purpose behind the public humiliation. Amy remains beside Edward while the surrounding nobles continue watching the tense confrontation. Anastasia suddenly begins trembling as overwhelming emotions consume her. The unexpected reaction surprises nearby guests who realize the atmosphere has changed dramatically. Without warning, Anastasia loses her balance and falls forward before the crowd. The nobles panic while Edward and Amy watch the shocking scene unfold in silence. At that instant, a young boy awakens in another place with memories returning all at once. The strange experience completely changes his understanding of himself and the world. The boy realizes his name is Alan, an ordinary 8-year-old living in the royal capital of St. Laren. Recognizing the dangerous situation, he prepares to change the fate awaiting everyone. Alan regains memories of his previous life and realizes he has been reincarnated into the world of an otome game. He understands he is only an ordinary background character living inside the game's storyline. Alan recalls the game's tragic future and realizes his mother, the townspeople, and countless others are destined to die. The horrifying revelation convinces him that disaster is approaching. He remembers that Princess Anastasia challenges Amy to a duel, but the crown prince fights in Amy's place. Without anyone supporting Anastasia, she suffers a humiliating defeat. After losing, Anastasia leaves for a monastery in shame but is attacked by bandits before arriving. Her disappearance becomes the beginning of an even greater tragedy. Anastasia's fate throws the kingdom into political chaos and eventually sparks civil war. As neighboring nations invade the weakened country, Alan realizes he must prevent the disastrous future. Alan refuses to accept the tragic future revealed by his recovered memories. Determined to protect his family, he firmly decides that he will not allow the coming disaster to destroy their lives. Alan's mother rushes into his room after hearing the loud commotion. Worried by his strange behavior, she finds him overwhelmed but physically unharmed inside their home. Alan calms himself and reassures his mother that nothing serious has happened. After seeing her gentle smile, he quietly hides the truth about the memories he has regained. Watching the peaceful town outside, Alan vows to protect his mother, the townspeople, and everyone living there. His determination grows stronger as he accepts the difficult future ahead. Alan realizes escaping with his mother is impossible because of the kingdom's strict feudal system. Instead of fleeing, he resolves to remain in town and change fate through his own actions. Alan resolves to overturn the game's tragic storyline before Anastasia's condemnation. The civil war and the kingdom's collapse can occur. He decides that changing fate becomes his new purpose. While eating breakfast with his mother, Alan recalls the current timeline and confirms there are still 8 years before Anastasia's engagement is publicly annulled. The remaining time gives him hope to prepare. Alan reflects on his previous life and realizes his knowledge of the otome game is his greatest advantage. He decides saving Anastasia is also the best way to protect his mother and hometown. Walking through the capital, Alan suddenly notices a noble carriage passing along the busy street. The unexpected arrival immediately catches his attention. Alan recognizes the young noble girl inside the carriage as Anastasia. Realizing fate has given him an early opportunity, he watches carefully, determined to begin changing her future. Alan and Anastasia briefly notice each other as the passing carriage crosses his path. Although the encounter lasts only a moment, Alan realizes fate has already begun moving according to the game's story. Alan apologizes inwardly for doing nothing during their first meeting. Watching the carriage disappear, he renews his determination to overturn the tragic future awaiting Anastasia and the kingdom. Alan reviews the events he remembers from the game and decides to use that knowledge to predict future developments. Beyond changing history, he sincerely wishes to save Anastasia's life. Alan reflects that Anastasia is unfairly labeled the story's villainess. Despite being an honorable and responsible person, her true character strengthens his resolve to protect her. Remembering Anastasia's strong sense of duty, Alan believes she truly embodies the ideals expected of the nobility. He becomes convinced that saving her is the key to changing the kingdom's fate. Alan reflects on the game's storyline and realizes Anastasia was unfairly portrayed as a villain despite her true character. He believes the original scenario twists the truth and deserves to be changed. While walking through the marketplace, Alan unexpectedly bumps into Monica, a cheerful woman carrying groceries. The brief encounter reminds him of the ordinary people he also wants to protect. Alan apologizes before speaking with Monica about her shopping and daily work. After their friendly conversation, he decides to ask for her help with an important matter. Alan follows Monica to the tavern connected to the Adventurers Guild. Believing the guild could help achieve his plans, he prepares to make his first request. Inside the guild, Alan and his mother approach the adventurers gathered in the hall. Their unexpected visit attracts everyone's attention. As Alan prepares to explain his purpose, Alan realizes his plan to change the future has finally begun. Although nervous about the uncertain outcome, he remains determined to take the first step toward altering the kingdom's fate. Inside the Adventurers Guild, Alan and his mother approach the guild members. The guild master notices the young boy and patiently waits to hear his unusual request. Alan boldly asks for permission to clean the mud-filled ditch outside the town. His unexpected proposal surprises everyone gathered inside the guild hall. After considering the request, the guild master agrees to let Alan begin the work. The approval marks the beginning of Alan's first effort to change the future. The guild immediately starts preparing Alan's registration while his mother completes the required documents. As the paperwork proceeds, Alan officially takes his first step into the Adventurers Guild. The guild staff prepares Alan's registration by asking him to place a drop of blood onto a guild card. Although surprised by the procedure, Alan calmly follows the instructions without hesitation. After a small prick on his finger, Alan places his blood onto the card. The guild card immediately reacts with a magical glow, confirming that the registration process has succeeded. Alan receives his completed guild card and officially becomes a member of the Adventurers Guild. The staff reminds him to keep the valuable cards safe before he leaves. Monica warmly congratulates Alan on joining the guild and encourages him to work hard. Alan gratefully accepts her support while thinking about the long journey ahead. Alan's mother smiles proudly as she wishes him good luck on his first adventure. Encouraged by everyone around him, Alan confidently prepares to begin changing the future. Alan organizes his goals and decides to confirm the world's future while earning enough money. He knows both objectives are necessary to save Anastasia, his mother, and the entire town from disaster. Alan reviews the game's timeline and remembers he must eventually enter the Royal Academy. Realizing he lacks the money for enrollment, he works hard cleaning filthy drainage ditches to earn rewards. After finishing the job, Alan accepts a dangerous assignment to clean the underground sewer. Besides the higher payment, he believes the location will prove whether this world truly follows the game's events. Alan enters the underground sewer. Remembering that a hidden scroll should remain undiscovered for several more years, he carefully searches the tunnels while comparing every detail with his memories. Alan recalls that the sewer later becomes an escape route leading to the hidden scroll. Finding everything exactly as remembered convinces him the game world's events are real. Strengthening his resolve to change fate, Alan finds the marked brick exactly where he remembered and uncovers a hidden passage behind the wall. Excited by the discovery, he enters the forgotten chamber deep beneath the underground sewer. Inside the secret room, Alan carefully searches for the legendary scroll. Studying every corner, he eventually discovers it hidden above an old stone structure. Alan cautiously retrieves the scroll while checking for hidden traps. Although reaching it proves difficult, he successfully obtains the ancient item without triggering any danger. The scroll reacts exactly as described in the game, glowing brightly before disappearing. Witnessing the event firsthand convinces Alan that the world's events perfectly match his memories. Alan confirms Amy originally obtained the concealment skill from this very scroll. Using his guild card, he records the discovery, believing the evidence will help him change the future. Alan checks his status through the guild card and confirms he has obtained the concealment skill. The result proves that everything is unfolding exactly as it did in the game world. Certain the future matches his memories, Alan renews his determination to prevent the kingdom's tragic ending. He returns to work in the sewer, refusing to let the original storyline continue unchanged. After finishing the day's work, the adventurers tell Alan to clean himself before returning home. The cheerful workers joke with him, treating the young boy like one of their own companions. Alan washes away the dirt while another worker nearby finishes bathing. The exhausting day finally comes to an end after hours spent cleaning the underground sewer. As Alan prepares to leave, he unexpectedly encounters Monica again outside the bathing area. She notices his condition, while the surrounding adventurers remind him that his mother has been worried about him every day. Back home, Alan ignores the workers' jokes and begins testing the newly acquired concealment skill. He quietly checks whether the ability functions exactly as described in the game's storyline. Alan successfully activates the skill inside his house and confirms it works as expected. His mother unknowingly calls him for dinner, proving the concealment ability can hide his presence effectively. During dinner, Alan gives his mother the money he earned from the guild. He also remembers that studying at the local school is necessary before taking the Royal Academy entrance examination. After obtaining concealment, Alan sets his sights on acquiring the appraisal skill. He believes the new ability will become another key to changing the kingdom's future. Alan recalls that the appraisal scroll lies inside a dangerous monster-infested area instead of a sewer. Knowing the journey could cost his life, he still resolves to obtain the skill. Alan continues searching the wilderness while using concealment to avoid nearby horned rabbits. Although the monsters are harmless, his real objective is locating the forgotten ruins hiding the appraisal scroll. For several days, Alan explores forests and compares the landscape with his memories. Despite repeated failures, he refuses to give up and continues searching before nightfall each day. The exhausting exploration continues into the third and fourth days. Alan returns home tired every evening, hiding his true mission while reassuring his worried mother that everything is fine. On the fifth day, Alan finally discovers the ancient ruins hidden deep within the wilderness. Relieved that his efforts have succeeded, he immediately prepares to continue the search. Alan carefully enters the ruins, determined to locate the appraisal scroll before celebrating. Suddenly, an unfamiliar sound catches his attention, forcing him to hide and observe the danger ahead. Alan secretly discovers a group of goblins guarding the ancient ruins. Realizing unexpected danger blocks his path, he carefully considers his next move, taking Alan off guard with their crushing numbers. From a secret vantage point, he assessed the danger. Knowing concealment became the only thing keeping him alive. The appearance of the parchment of evaluation arrived to mind its retrieval, now more urgent than ever. Steadying his breath, Alan rejected the idea of withdrawal, aware delay would cost him all. With fresh resolve, he advanced, placing his faith in the power of romance game skills. Alan descended the stone stride, entering the subterranean layers with careful resolve. The passage forward glowed softly, illuminated by moss clinging to the cave walls. Stretching out to the luminous surface, he took a scene to admire the serene light around him. Despite the cramped space, he pressed forward, quietly hoping no more goblins lurked below. Soon, he found the secret room. The parchment of evaluation was finally within reach. To Alan's alarm, the room held not just the parchment, but piles of loot never seen in the game. An unexpected movement alarmed him. A goblin guard appeared, taking him completely off guard. He hid swiftly, realizing the room served as a treasure vault for the goblins. Single of them drew near, sniffing suspiciously, his appearance uncomfortably close. The odor shaken Alan, but he struggled to stay silent and unnoticed. Unexpected blow distracted the goblin, giving Alan the scene he required to escape detection. He dropped nearby, tired but relieved to have made it past unnoticed. Reflecting on the circumstance, Alan understood the incidents in the ruins were diverging from the game's script. While some changes became troubling, the parchment became still buried in its secret spot. Using the map's clue, he retrieved it safe from goblins. Thanks to clever concealment, Alan let the goblins pass, his heart pounding as he stayed secret just inches away. After safely stretching the surface, he looked rear at the city, relieved to have came back unharmed. In secret, he readied to use the parchment, aware that discovery would bring problems. The ability was properly acquired concealment evaluation. Now part of his arsenal, with fresh resolve, Alan resumed his daily existence, already scheming his next move. A fortnight afterward, Alan noticed an unusual buzz among the others as he arrived in the courtyard. He approached the instructor for answers, sensing something serious possessed occurred. The boy explained they'd found a goblin nest in a remote labyrinth and planned a strike. Alan quietly affirmed his choice, securing the parchment earlier possessed been the right call. Yet as scenarios shifted, he wondered if the game script became already unraveling. Alan asked if the instructor would join the strike, only to listen to him politely refuse. Surprised, Alan questioned his decision, noting how capable he still appeared. With a grin, the boy showed a prosthetic leg, his adventuring days behind him. He explained an orc's poisoned arrow possessed finished his active career. Though the prosthetic functioned well, combat possessed become difficult. Now he focused on teaching and basic routines. The instructor grinned kindly, offering to teach Alan's sword basics once he was prepared. Not long after, the crew began scheming their route to the ruins. Maps spread out across the desk. Watching silently, Alan admired the boy's leadership despite his retired status. Afterward, while working, Alan set his sights on a fresh goal: learning alchemy. On his time off, he readied to head into city, silently advancing his plans solely. Alan walked past the market, thinking about the steep cost of the alchemy parchment, 15 million cents. Encircled by merchants, he pondered how to make enough funds to reach that goal. He understood his evaluation ability could help identify valuable items secret among common goods. A rare earring worth 300,000 cents caught his notice almost immediately. Interested, Alan approached the vendor, requesting about the earring's details and value. Alan inquired about the earring's origin and decided to buy it after hearing its backstory. He paid using his association badge, proving the purchase at a surprisingly low price. Despite the vendor's teasing about romance, Alan stayed focused on his goal. He calculated the profit buying low and selling bright could become a valuable side strategy. With a resolved grin, Alan decided to continue working hard and rescuing steadily. Alan showed the earring and gloves to the instructor, requesting for an expert opinion before selling. The boy examined them briefly, already intrigued, and offered to call a specialist. The expert confirmed the item's identities: earring of strength and rare fireproof gloves. He cautioned Alan about the risks of open selling but offered a fair association purchase instead. Grateful, Alan agreed, warned to stay grounded and not let luck go into greed. Alan created single final petition. He wanted to learn how to wield a sword. Training began, but his appearance became swiftly corrected with loud, sharp commands. Drenched in sweat, he pushed past each swing, eager to improve under his mentor's guidance. The instructor emphasized that power solely required nothing without ability and grasping. He warned Alan mastery comes not from the weapon, but from the single who learns to use it. Alan recognized the instructor's warning. Relying only on cheat skills could cost him all. With fresh will, he became ordered to run 100 laps to build his strength. Despite exhaustion, he kept moving. Knowing each step brought him closer to his goal, he dropped, barely able to breathe, but knew tomorrow's training would be just as tough. In that scene, Alan swore he wouldn't lose. He had too much to guard. Alan continued balancing sword training, manual work, and evaluation-based pay, steadily working toward his goal. Now 11, he had saved over 15 million cents, enough to care for the next decisive step. Alan prepares to leave, prompting his mom to ask if he's going out. Calmly replies he's heading to the market, dressed with goals, showing maturity that surprises his mom. After 2 seasons of study and rigorous training, Alan finally achieves his savings goal past resolve. He enters a perilous district, heading toward a store secret in the darkness of the kingdom metropolis. Cautiously, he descends the alley stairs, scheming to stay unnoticed and avoid unnecessary confrontation. Alan found the secret rules store and disabled his concealment before knocking on the door. He inspected the luminous message board and identified the time's password using his evaluation ability. After proving the phrase, he repeated it with precision, prompting the lock to disengage. Within, a cloaked shopkeeper welcomed him with a cryptic grin, requesting his intent. Asked for the parchment of alchemy, ready to negotiate for the steep price offered. Alan paused as the shopkeeper asked for a scene, his gaze briefly caught by an odd skeletal display. The parchment was finally shown along with a bonus goblin sorcery stones as Alan readied his evaluation. To his astonishment, the parchment was showed to be a cheap imitation worth far less than claimed. He confronted the deception directly, demanding honesty, which earned him the shopkeeper's consent. Acknowledging Alan's sharpness, the boy readied to show him the true deal. Alan confirmed the parchment's authenticity this time and offered to pay with his association badge. Upon activating the parchment, the alchemy ability was properly added to his list of abilities. While the shopkeeper cackled with amusement, Alan silently promised never to return again. At house, he was welcomed by his mom's lecture for arriving so delayed. As she warned him about tomorrow, Alan promised to rest early for the big time. The night before the exam, Alan studied notes in bed, aware he'd be graduating early at age 11. In the metropolis, free schools became common, though many skipped middle studies altogether. Alan's class studied etiquette, history, and noble crests. As the teacher called him, he came her to the exam hall. She commended his rare achievement, while Alan promised to give his best. At her signal, the final exam began, timed and intense. Alan breezed past the memorization section. Confident in facts, he barely connected to true citizens. Geography showed a little challenging, leaving him unsure about production stats across regions. He raised his hand and informed the teacher he became finished with the exam. Though only an hour possessed passed, he pressed on submitting his paper, the teacher frantic at his speed, but Alan stayed relaxed, sure of his answers. As Alan exited the room, the teacher told him the results would be announced in a week. 7 days afterward, she hurried in breathlessly, shouting the outcome with excitement. He achieved perfect marks in every subject, a feat unheard of for someone his age. Praising his brilliance, the teacher grew emotional while Alan awkwardly asked her to calm down. Embarrassed, she apologized, and Alan awkwardly confessed to using a few reincarnation advantages. Offered a recommendation for bright studies. Alan proudly agreed, knowing he had earned it. Despite his excitement, the teacher warned him he'd still have to wait until age 15. She explained how the system allowed for accelerated learning but wasn't rose for such leaps. Alan showed gratitude as the teacher congratulated him on his early graduation. Encircled by classmates, Alan confessed his success arrived from effort and a little reincarnation help. Under a soft sky, Alan thought on his middle studies graduation. His mom served a small meal, apologizing for their hardship, but Alan appreciated her appearance more than the food. Surprising him, she offered a dismantling knife wrapped in leather. She explained it became a gift to celebrate his graduation and coming of age. Moved, Alan understood the sacrifice behind it, treasuring the knife as her heartfelt support. Wetness welled in Alan's gazes, surprising even himself. As his mom comforted him softly, she embraced him, expressing her hopes for his happiness and alerting him not to overwork himself. Alan promised to cherish the knife she gave him, calling it his treasure. Though she couldn't afford his schooling, he promised to save up for bright studies. With soft strength, he promised to guard her, resolved to do all right. At 12, Alan became an official F-rank adventurer and gained early bright studies exam eligibility. Abruptly, someone hugged him tightly in excitement, taking him off guard. Monica, beaming with dignity, announced his fresh rank to the entire tavern. While others joked with him, Alan pressed he not be treated like a child. Senior warned him to stay focused. He became good but still possessed much to learn despite lacking a warrior's divine protection. Alan earned praise for his performance and dedication. Divine protection's blessings from gods enhanced abilities or granted special powers in this realm. Heroes like the royal prince and Amy possessed powerful protections, while others still remained out with training. Alan lacked such blessings but pushed himself to overcome this disadvantage past relentless effort. Having rose points from seasons of cleaning, he was single task away from promotion to E rank. Alan learned his promotion job involved herb collection and hunting horned rabbits, both seemingly basic. He agreed to begin the next time, though cautioned not to underestimate the beasts. 2 days afterward, he came back with herbs and sorcery stones, properly completing the task. Thanks to his game knowledge, Alan found the herbs easily in ruins cleared of goblins. Preparing to expression the rabbits, he awakened his concealment ability and drew his weapon. Alan approached the grazing horned rabbits, blade in hand, preparing to strike. Though they looked harmless, he warned himself they became destructive pests and apologized silently. Returning to the association, he was commended and promoted to E rank with a proud grin. That night, he used the knife his mom gave him to dress the rabbits. Grateful, with his fresh rank, Alan gained the right to travel freely and care for longer missions. Alan learned there became only single divine protection available to a villager's secret deep within the Valley of the Flying Dragon. This divine gift enhanced wind thread sorcery, crucial for passing the bright studies' practical exams. With his dismantling knife in hand, Alan announced his next journey, prepared to expression the valley's trial. A furious dragon roared in grief, blaming Amy and her companion for her mate's death. As the dragon lunged, Amy walked in rear, narrowly avoiding the strike. Her partner yelled for her to withdraw. He cast a powerful barrier spell, halting the assault and shaking the ground with its impact. Amid the rubble, the two questioned if the threat became truly over, but the dragon's shadow loomed again, proving it became not. Carl walked forward, shielding Amy and delivering the final blow. Amy wept over the fallen wyvern's child. Carl tried to comfort her. Rewards became granted, but the cost became heavy. Afterward, Alan rode a cart, tiredly reflecting the battle possessed been scripted. Part of the game's questline, he pondered the wyvern lord's pain, recognizing the cruelty from its sight. An uninvited invasion. As he parted ways, he cautioned others. The true journey was just start. Alan arrived in Friesen, preparing for the long journey past the mountains toward the Dragon Valley. Intent on avoiding conflict, he awakened concealment sorcery to slip former the demons said to lurk in the region. Tired from the climb, he understood he'd underestimated the trek overhead. A dragon abruptly soared former. As he reached the ridge, the breathtaking scene of flying dragons filled the sky before him. He recalled the key difference: dragons breathe fire. Unlike lesser wyverns, Alan scouted a clearing, deciding it became the best location to set up camp before sunset. Using alchemy, he swiftly shaped the ground, creating a foundation for his shelter. He refined the design, adding sky holes and a chimney. The ability, once used only for crafting, showed fresh utility. With mastery, alchemy could forge fortresses or mystic tools for final battles. Finished his semi-basement camp, rose from seasons of dedication and ability. Alan whispered goodnight, clutching his blade under the stars as smoke rose from his newly rose camp. At daybreak, he restored the area and set out with fresh concentrate. His goal was the Temple of the Wind. Using concealment, he advanced confidently, avoiding the aggressive wyverns that once posed a constant threat. Soon, he reached the ancient stairs that led to the temple. Just as he began climbing, something surprising caught his notice. Within the temple, a black wyvern lord lay curled beneath the pillars, a father from the slain kin. It appeared to be sleeping. Soft stride moved closer, aiming to retrieve the sacred book unnoticed. An unexpected voice halted all. Paralysis struck just as a luminous boy emerged from the sky. The boy, calm and smiling, already knew the goal without delay. He shone the book of the wind god, proving its goal with certainty. A calm grin formed as the boy showed himself to be the wind god, casually reading thoughts and bypassing concealment. Bewildered and shaken, the boy asked what a god could possibly want. The answer: wake the sleeping dragon. Without delay, a powerful strike launched the wyvern into the sky. The divine figure floated beside it. Waiting moments afterward, the beast came back fully awake. With single eye open, the wyvern was presented as a surprising ally. Jerome nervously presented himself. Voice shaky, he confessed to being a wyvern lord more or less. A brief rush came. Alan presented himself, unsure how to respond to the circumstance. With soft coaxing, Jerome extended a claw. A handshake sealed the embarrassing but honest greeting. The wind god grinned. An odd petition came. He wanted help finding Jerome a wife. Apparently, the love-struck wyvern possessed fallen from Melissa, a rare sky dragon hybrid. A divine proposal became created. Help the wyvern's love succeed, and divine protection would follow. Bewilderment set in. Lizard romance became foreign territory, yet the wind god showed no worry. Despite delay, questions began. Jerome flustered easily, but cooperation grew. A vision of Melissa appeared, graceful, proud, and unforgettable. In Jerome's gazes, recognition struck. That ribbon fit the game's boss, the final challenge, guarding the book of the wind god. Nervously, Jerome commended Melissa's charm and beauty, remembering the happiness he once possessed. Questions came: her hobbies, interests, but Jerome possessed never spoken to her. Understanding sank in. Admiration from afar wasn't love. He was just a stranger. A strategy to start with greetings took shape behind a tree. He trembled, sweat poured as he tried to speak. Step-by-step advice resounded in his mind. All he possessed to do became introduce himself. Melissa's sharp glare froze him. Questions cut past. Who became he, and what did he want? Crushed by her cold stare, he wilted, wings dropped, dignity shattered. A gift was the backup strategy. Alan suggested meet. Jerome agreed. Appeared reasonable for wyverns. While they waited, the wind god floated casually. Jerome's delay raised worry, but faith in his skills stayed. Moments afterward, he came back, tired but triumphant. He shone the prey in his claws. With the meat offering behind them, Alan suggested a fresh angle look. Fashion might labor where remarks failed. Resolved not to give up, Jerome took off, eager for the next strategy. A dramatic floral entry was attempted. Melissa responded with terror, not flattery. Slumped on the ground, Jerome reconsidered. Maybe flashy wasn't effective. After all, Alan proposed a fresh idea: dress well, not loud. A suit symbolized trust. For humans, at least, an idea formed: if suits gain trust, maybe a necktie solely would help. Alan considered crafting single himself at the middle of a drawn circle. He began shaping it using sorcery. Jerome saw, puzzled but intrigued. Alchemy blazed to existence. A glow rushed as components fused past the awakened sorcery circle. The result glimmered into sight. A perfect, crisp necktie appeared on Jerome's chest. Grinning proudly, he thanked Alan. The effort paid off. He finally seemed prepared. Jerome beamed with gratitude and hurried to show off his fresh look. In the middle of the audience, Melissa remained encircled. He yelled her name with haste. Realizing he didn't know her place, he relied on divine help and launched into flight. Wetness welled up as he spotted her. Resolve filled his heart. Soaring past the sky, Alan and his ally approach a tense battlefield. Amid the bewilderment, the lizard warriors hesitate, unsure how to respond to the surprising circumstance. Without notice, a violent impact shatters the standoff as two powerful troops collide middle of sky. Crashing to the ground, Alan disrupts the enemy formation, taking them off guard. With fierce resolve, a lone warrior shields Melissa. Unleashing a defiant roar at the approaching threat, several enemies close in, surrounding the fallen warrior as he struggles to hold them rear. Despite his injuries, he urges Melissa to escape, remaining protectively between her and danger. With haste in her gazes, Melissa leaps into the sky, flying away from the battlefield. Behind her, the brave warrior intercepts a strike, refusing to let anyone reach her. Summoning his strength, he unleashes a powerful counterattack, sending enemies crashing in every direction. Melissa is abruptly seized middle of flight, pulled rear by a resolved pursuer stretching out with power. Far above the cliffs, a chaotic chase unfolds as multiple figures scatter across the sky. Down below, Alan and his companion react to the approaching threat, alarmed by the aerial scene. Without delay, the god intervenes middle of sky, disrupting the enemy's path with a burst of wind. Trying to explain the circumstance, Alan introduces themselves as friends, though bewilderment still lingers. Comforted by his companion, Melissa learns the warrior fought bravely to guard her. Midair, the tired fighter loses command and begins spiraling downward toward the cliffs below. A loud crash follows as his form hits the rocky ground, raising a cloud of dust. Melissa, caught beneath him, winces in pain as they both struggle to recover. Flustered and embarrassed, he scrambles off her, apologizing with frantic haste. Melissa, still flustered, expresses her gratitude to Jerome for rescuing her, addressing him softly without delay. She leans forward and kisses his cheek, calling him cool with sincere admiration. From a distance, Alan watches their scene happen, realizing his task is now finished. A divine voice reaches out, promising Alan the reward he became promised for his efforts. Touched by the gesture, Alan receives the wind god's blessing, sought by those he helped unite. The wind god teases Jerome and Melissa about marriage, promising his blessing when the time comes. At the altar, Alan discovers the wind god's book is missing. Realizing the divine strategy has shifted, he reflects silently, knowing his deeds have altered the course of the original story. Grateful, Jerome thanks Alan, though Alan humbly deflects the praise to others. With a serious tone, Alan warns Jerome to avoid the area for 4 seasons due to a potential threat. Melissa surprises all by calling Jerome Jerry, showing how close they've become already. She promises that if Alan ever needs help, she and Jerome will return the help, whichever happened. Alan smiles, encouraging Jerome to cherish Melissa and make their bond last. Touched, the pair thank Alan sincerely, though Jerome still struggles to procedure it all. With a final farewell, the couple flies off to discover their love nest, leaving Alan behind with a soft grin. Alan watches the wyverns fly away, amused that he finished up assisting them instead of humans. Before returning to Rorden, he recalls there is still a single goal he wants to pursue in Friesen Village. With excitement, he decides to build a glider to achieve faster transportation. He reflects on how limited travel is in this realm, relying only on horse-drawn carts. Imagining the sky, he visions of revolutionizing movement with flight. With a fresh goal in mind, Alan commits to structure a motor glider powered by wind sorcery. His strategy is nearly finished, drawn from recollections of his former existence as an aeronautical engineer. He scouts a large, flat field and prepares it as a makeshift runway. Using newly acquired sorcery, Alan clears the land with a powerful wind-based spell. Despite progress, he finds the act of chanting spells a little awkward. Though the sorcery flows naturally, Alan's stats improve with the wind god's blessing, unexpectedly granting him wind sorcery and boosting his power. Grateful yet amused, he uses his sorcery to obvious grass with ease, calling the god creepy. With the field prepared, he shifts concentrate to preparing the glider for test flights. Past alchemy, he efficiently constructs both glider and runway using detailed mystic diagrams. Materials from defeated wyverns along with charcoal enhance his crafting efficiency as preparations near completion. With a steady hand, Alan casts the smelting spell, igniting the materials in a controlled burst of power. The result is a sleek, fully formed glider, his efforts rewarded with visible success and satisfaction. Remaining beside his creation, he evaluates the weather and prepares for test flights on the prepared runway. Within the cockpit, Alan powers the engine using wind sorcery channeled past a sorcery stone. He confirms the controls, ensuring both rudder and wings respond smoothly to his adjustments. Alan channels wind sorcery into the glider, carefully increasing its power to avoid turmoil. He struggles to balance the output but refuses to stop the launch sequence. With rising speed and resolve, Alan finally achieves liftoff and soars skyward. Alan launched his glider into the sky. A grin spread across his expression as it soared properly over the valley. He scanned the landscape below and adjusted the direction. Following the route toward Rorden, the village passed beneath him, the buildings and roads obvious from above as he maintained steady flight. A brief thought of forgotten chores emerged, but the thrill of flying after so long overpowered it. Her gazes widened as she spotted Alan soaring above the trees. While enjoying tea in the garden, Anastasia stopped, raising her finger toward the sky. Margaret turned her head, interested. A strange shape glided quietly above the forest, its wings still but steady. Anastasia suggested it could be a wyvern, and calmly decided it should be reported to the castle. Meanwhile, Alan soared confidently above the clouds, the metropolis's skyline finally appearing on the horizon. What once took days by coach, he now completed in mere hours. From above, Alan surveyed the kingdom metropolis. No rivers or open fields offered an obvious landing spot. Weighing his options, he considered the dangers of crashing into a meadow until a shimmering lake arrived into sight. With haste in his grip, he braced himself and committed to the descent. His strategy became precise: approach the lake's edge and slow down just before touching the water. Alan steadied the glider, pushing forward into the final scene of landing. As the glider neared the surface, Alan called wind sorcery to slow the descent, directing a powerful undue thrust. A rush of wind tore past the lake's edge as the craft cut past the sky in a final desperate approach. The glider slammed into the water, splashing wildly. Moments afterward, Alan emerged, gasping for breath as debris floated nearby, tired but safe. He sat beneath a tree, relieved his vital belongings survived the crash. Alan saw the shattered remains of his glider dissolve in the lake, a soft understanding dawning. Despite the success of his flight, he counted the cost-precious wyvern materials gone with a single crash. At the association, drenched and weary, Alan rushed into familiar faces and offered a half-hearted reason for his soaked clothing. Rudolph welcomed him kindly, though his lecture arrived sharp and surprising, mistaking him for the cause while Alan tried to hold Rear a laugh. Waving off the teasing remarks about age and modesty from the association members, under the mystic shower he thought on the comforts of this game-seen clean water. As he rinsed off, Alan planned his next stride: sell the items, alter clothing, and return house. Afterward that evening, he recounted the journey over meal, marking the termination of his first expedition. Though his form rested in bed, something lingered, an unresolved feeling that the story wasn't quite over yet. Sitting by the canal, Alan mulled over his journey, acknowledging the missteps that marred his return from Friesen. Poor scheming led to the glider's crash, no landing site, and no room for error. Reflecting more, he understood how much his child's form had dulled his judgment compared to his former adult existence. Clarity emerged from the water's stillness. He'd need constant self-awareness moving forward, despite the failures. His design wasn't flawed, just the piloting. Lessons had been learned. Managing a glider with sorcery showed more complex than expected. At his desk, he sketched a fresh idea. A vertical takeoff and landing craft would eliminate the need for long runways. Multitasking stayed impossible with his current limits. He'd need something extra. A rare item emerged in his thoughts, single capable of simultaneous casting, the parchment of multiple chanting. Though the parchment rested in a difficult place, he was resolved. Preparations had to begin. With a commanding gesture, Alan awakened his sorcery, shaping materials with precision for his next design. Before him remained a refined aircraft, sleek, compact, and tailored. While not a VTOL, it became Rose for a single task. Fingers tightened around the controls as the glider began its run across the field. Wheels lifted from the ground, speed rushed. Sky bit against his flight suit. Gazes forward, concentrate sharp. He soared skyward once more, resolved. Readied flight wasn't his only worry, true mastery required grasping. The world of alchemy, precise blueprints defined the quality of what could be created. Vague ideas led to inefficient outcomes. Without strong sorcery, even brilliant designs lacked power. Amy succeeded due to her protagonist-level powers. He possessed no such luxury. Material cost was another barrier. Without enough resources, even basic crafting became nearly impossible. Thankfully, substitutions were possible. Rare wyvern parts could be swapped with cheaper alternatives. Alan spotted a towering structure rising into the sky, the fabled Tower of the Sage. Forward, a tiny aircraft approached the towering structure, piercing the clouds, known as the Sage's Tower. It reached over 300 floors into the sky. Two reached the summit. The pilot possessed to ascend in spirals, navigating each loop with precision. Flying above the stratus clouds, he calculated his altitude near 2,000 meters. Near the top, no opposition arrived from the tower as he closed in. He readied to reach the highest floor of the Sage's Tower with haste. He dismantled the wind sorcery engine mid-air and launched himself from the aircraft. Descending freely, he drifted above the tower while preparing to summon sorcery past his focus mana. A burst of power awakened the parachute, stabilizing his downfall as wind sorcery rushed. His timing precise. The impact hit the tower's top section in a controlled explosion. He landed safely and swiftly began storing away his deployed gear. Swinging from a rope, he steadied himself against the tower's outer barrier, taking his breath mid-air. Within the breach, he dropped on the floor, tired but comforted that all proceeded as planned. Declaring the task a triumph, he recognized how his aerial infiltration bypassed all expected threats. He uncovered a sealed parchment within the room, its glow proving its value. With a single gesture, the ability became absorbed, another step toward his ultimate goal. As the tower began repairing itself, he understood time became short and escape was urgent. Right above the clouds, he thought on the stake just taken to gain a powerful ability. A legend told of a sage who cast spells without chanting, using sorcery to help others. Though the sage died tragically, his soul became the chantless parchment, secret in a mystical forest. Now, his next destination became obvious: reach the Forest of Illusion and retrieve the final parchment. Navigating by a dated association map, he tried estimating his place near the Forest of Illusion. Uncertainty loomed as he drifted off course, worried about landing before nightfall. Strong demons lurked below, and he knew his strength became limited. Caution was crucial. As the sun dipped low, he finally spotted the village nestled between the trees. Relieved, he aimed for the bead point just beyond the village to safely descend. He engaged the vertical engine, initiating a controlled descent toward the clearing below. Altitude command systems on both wings stabilized the craft for a precise landing. Touching down softly, he walked out, tired but relieved the flight had finished safely. Though tired, he readied to conceal the aircraft with sorcery before entering the village. Before he could proceed, armed villagers encircled him, ordering him to stay still. Caught off guard, Alan froze as strain filled the sky and weapons aimed at him. Brought before the village elders, he confirmed his identity as a human named Alan. The lead elf questioned his appearance, demanding a cause for entering the village. Alan explained he got lost, but single elf charged him of deception. Before judgment was passed, the elder warned all of the energy protecting their house. The elf ruler questioned how Alan, a human, escaped the forest limits. Doubt filled the room as no single sensed mystic power strong enough to justify flight. Alan cautiously showed he became protected by the wind god, though he preferred to stay discreet. Surprised by his answer, the elves lowered their weapons, murmuring about divine protection. Moved, the ruler commended the gods while Alan stayed unsure of what he had just started. Now seen as a divine figure, Alan became respectfully asked by the ruler to save their village. Bewildered, he wondered if a fresh game event possessed unexpectedly begun. The ruler explained that an evil spirit became slowly drawing nearer to their house, immune to their efforts. Alan, not aware of the event, tried to understand the threat past calm asking about. She stated how the spirit harassed both the elves and their guardian energy relentlessly. Alan learned the spirit hadn't harmed anyone yet, but its approach threatened the village's fate. Despite delay, the elves pleaded for his help, believing in his divine protection. Abruptly, the elf princess Sherry barged in, vowing to lose the spirit herself without human aid. Before the argument escalated, a villager hurried in to report the spirit's unexpected look. Sherry sprinted off, demanding the place while others struggled to keep her in check. With the ruler's plea in mind, Alan decided to follow the princess into the commotion. Shouts rang past the village as guards mobilized. The evil spirit possessed appeared in the square. A robed figure wandered aimlessly, drawing fearful gazes from villagers and soldiers alike. Alan questioned the label, sensing something odd about the supposed threat's vacant behavior. Bewildered, he understood he saw a boy, while the elves stated a black fog instead. Alan confessed he only saw a cloaked boy, prompting the ruler to grant him spirit vision. With enhanced seeing, he now witnessed the figure harassing frantic energy, proving the threat. Sherry drew her bow, declaring she would destroy the spirit without delay. He tried to stop her, uncertain whether the boy deserved death. Her arrow veered off objective, and frustration mounted as bewilderment over the spirit's identity worsened. The ruler turned to Alan with haste as the robed figure continued moving ominously past the village. Alan stared at the cloaked boy's hollow look, unable to identify what he truly became. An odd hooded boy appeared in front of an audience, casting light into the sky. Unsure of the boy's aims, Alan cautiously tried to speak to him and calm the circumstance. Abruptly, the boy yelled his frustrations, drawing notice with an outburst of private disclosure. He continued ranting, trying to justify himself with his name and minor. Alan, disturbed, suspected the boy was chasing a young woman and sensed possible criminal behavior. The robed boy excitedly claimed he sought an ancient spirit dwelling in the elf village. With unsettling enthusiasm, he explained the spirit looked like a child despite her age, alarming Alan. Meanwhile, the elves misjudged the scene, thinking Alan became interacting with a perilous entity. A confrontation broke out as accusations flew, with the boy defensively insisting on his innocence. Alan, growing irritated, scolded him for frightening the spirit and ordered him to stop chasing her. Hooded boy gasped in disbelief upon realizing his appearance was frightening the energy. Despite being told to leave, he stubbornly pressed on entering the elf village, asserting it became essential. He showed his goal, meeting the elf ruler to obtain a key ingredient for creating an elixir. Alan pulled him rear, pointing out the ruler already remained before them. The elves, however, stayed wary, convinced he was an evil spirit due to his questionable aims. Alan asked the boy if he would leave the village in exchange for the ingredients he required. With consent from the elf ruler, Alan formally agreed to listen to the boy's petition. The odd boy reiterated he required a spirit tree petal and honey, promising to go afterward, responding swiftly. The elves gathered the ingredients as instructed by their ruler. Upon tasting the mixture, The boy confirmed its quality, prompting Alan to remind him of his promise. Grateful beyond remarks, the robe boy promised Alan he would never forget the gentleness shown. Meanwhile, the elves celebrated Alan, praising him as a divine figure sent by the gods. Among them, a tsundere elf reluctantly recognized Alan's efforts. Though tried to mask her consent, the villagers invited Alan to stay for the night, offering him a location to rest. Afterward, he soaked in the hot spring. Surprised by the surprising luxury of the elf village, Alan began to reflect, realizing he hadn't anticipated all that occurred during the time. Unexpectedly, a muscular elf went into the washroom and offered to wash Alan's rear, taking him off guard. As the circumstance escalated awkwardly, Alan nervously declined, asking about the randomness of this romance-like event. Sound from beyond interrupted the scene, drawing notice from others in the village. The elf ruler joyfully announced the birth of the spirit of light, leaving Alan astonished once more. Children saw in wonder as luminous energy danced past the sky, single-identified as the spirit of light. The elf ruler marveled at the phenomenon, noting it hadn't occurred in 800 seasons. Alan, remembering game knowledge, grew wary this event didn't match the original story timeline. Abruptly, the spirit approached Alan, joyfully recognizing him as her savior from the time before. She showed that, thanks to the elixir she possessed, ascended and become a spirit herself. Alan became shocked to realize the spirit was the same eccentric boy from the time before. Now transformed, the spirit announced she truly understood what it required to be a youthful young woman. She showed her fresh name, Lu, and that she possessed created a contract with Millie. The elf ruler joyfully agreed the news and congratulated Millie on the surprising bond. Alan, bewildered by the deviation from the game's incidents, decided it was no longer his worry. The spirit Lu shown Alan with a parchment, offering it as a gift in gratitude. She explained it became a powerful chantless parchment she possessed, crafted after mastering her transformation. Originally required for her daughter, she entrusted it to Alan, acknowledging his great help. Upon evaluation, Alan confirmed the parchment's authenticity could grant the rare chantless ability. Though grateful, Alan seemed conflicted. Having obtained an incredible reward from such an odd source, Alan ready to leave the elf village, thanking the ruler and villagers for their cooperation. Nearby, the elf princess questioned the flying machine's ability, clearly skeptical of its function. Before his departure, the elf ruler approached Alan with something in her hands. She shone a handmade amulet, a token of gratitude and a symbol of their bond. As final preparations were made, villagers walked rear cautiously, watching the aircraft come to existence. The aircraft lifted off the ground with power, alarming the gathered elves as it took flight. Alan yelled his thanks and farewell, promising to return while the villagers saw in awe. All looked skyward, their expressions a mix of surprise, admiration, and soft farewell from above. Lu waved goodbye, her voice holding a promise of reunion as Alan departed. At house, Alan studied his progress, satisfied that phase single of his task was finished. Alan decided to increase his strength, knowing power would be essential to win upcoming duels. Returning to the association, his companions offered encouragement, some teasing, others giving sincere warnings. Single boy, remaining like a mentor, warned Alan not to act recklessly and dishonor his mom. Abruptly, Monica hurried in, embracing Alan with crushing enthusiasm as others laughed and saw. Caught off guard, Alan struggled to push her rear, embarrassed by her affectionate ambush. Monica cautioned Alan not to overwork himself, expressing worry for his safety. She swiftly shifted tone, sending him off with an eager strike and encouragement. Afterward, Alan informed his mom about his task and obtained a soft hug in return. Filled with will, he quietly promised to guard her from the incidents forward. An old merchant presents a rare item, elf-created honey, his gazes gleaming with dignity. Within a soft shop, Alan negotiates a deal, offering 2 million for 3 jars. Giving over payment, Alan requests more. Knowing the supply is difficult to secure, he then asks about sorcery bags, hoping to discover single with vast storage capacity. The merchant laughs, explaining such powerful items exist, but are nearly priceless and unseen. Alan agrees to return, amused by the merchant's eagerness and cryptic wit. Days afterward, he arrives in the village of Struzen, ready to hunt goblins for a commission. The village chief greets him kindly, explaining how rare visitors have become in recent months. While calculating his expenses, Alan realizes the poor profit margin of exterminating goblins. Despite low rewards and perilous risks, he resolves to expression the threat head-on. At daybreak, Alan strides into the forest near Struzen, confidently gripping his makeshift AK-47. Though crafted from cheap parts, the weapon mimics a Kalashnikov well enough for battle, intent on training. He roams the woods where goblins emerge from a secret labyrinth. Using concealment sorcery, he hides and prepares to shoot, keeping a careful distance. His shot lands. He watches the goblin collapse, uncertain if it became a clean hit. Cautiously, Alan approaches the fallen goblin, scanning for signs of existence. He confirms single bullet struck the chest and retrieves the embedded sorcery stone. Relieved by his success, he grins, knowing his wind sorcery-powered rifle is effective. To avoid attracting demons, he disposes of the goblin's form in a smelting pit. Remembering his childhood fears, he reflects armed with this rifle, even illusions feel conquerable. Alan reports his success, presenting 12 goblin sorcery stones to claim his reward. After verifying the kill count with his association badge, the chief confirms the payment. He chooses to remain in the village for a while, eating, resting, and preparing. Before leaving, Alan confirms his next goal, entering the labyrinth directly. A week of fruitless hunting convinces him it's time to expression the dungeon forward. Alan stands before the ancient entry, prepared to confront the infamous Goblin's Labyrinth. Though the dungeon wasn't essential in the original game, he chooses to dive in anyway. Legends speak of a labyrinth core protected by powerful bosses, though its existence is uncertain. With demons being both perilous and valuable, finished destruction isn't constantly the goal. Lantern in hand, he descends into the dim, excited by the tools at his side. Within the labyrinth, Alan notes it isn't densely packed, but the goblin encounters are steady. From the goblin's perspective, the dungeon's arrangement may seem like a maze of unknowns. Despite concealment, the lantern's glow betrays his appearance. Drawing notice, goblins rush forward only to be struck down by his rapid gunfire. Irritated by the absence of stealth, Alan compares himself to a luminous, defenseless anglerfish. Alan navigates swiftly, skipping unnecessary rooms, his recollection of the labyrinth's arrangement guiding the way. He reaches the 5th floor, remaining before the massive door to the boss room. With concentrate, he switches his ammunition from stealth to power rounds, readying for battle. Within, hobgoblins and goblin mages await, defending the core room with hostility. At their middle stands the towering threat, the Goblin King, armed and armored for conflict. Alan prioritizes the goblin mages, unleashing a barrage to eliminate the mystic threat, first with 2 confirmed kills. He swiftly reloads and readies for the next rush. He targets the hobgoblins, next, using smokescreen sorcery and sneaking to re-enable concealment. Their bodies bead, leaving only the Goblin King, who watches in quiet. Alan opens fire, bullets striking the armored giant as it lets out a monstrous roar. The Goblin King charges with crushing strength, smashing the floor as Alan narrowly dodges, cornered and out of options. Alan prepares a last-drained smelted weapon from his pouch. He hurls the bomb toward the king, banking on the surprise impact. Smoke erupts fiercely, blinding the king and causing him to stagger in agony. Toxic fumes erupt from his armor gaps. His roar turns to choke screams of pain. Alan fires relentlessly, closing the distance to land a direct shot to the Goblin King's head. His improvised pepper bomb strategy functioned just like in the game, blinding the enemy. Yet, despite critical damage, the monster refuses to perish, staggering with immense vitality, unable to pierce its skin. Alan chants Wind Cutter while gripping his blade tightly. With the battle over, he sighs, collecting the sorcery stones will be exhausting labor. Alan approaches the luminous sphere resting deep within the dungeon, the core of the labyrinth. Legends say that destroying it will bring the entire dungeon to termination. Raising his hand, he reaches out without delay, drawn by curiosity and responsibility. With a single touch, the space distorts, sending him rear to the entry. Smiling with relief, he confirms it. This is how you conquer the Goblin's Labyrinth. Rear and city, Alan receives praise from the villagers for conquering the labyrinth. Hearing he defeated 138 goblins, his mentor proudly congratulates him, a rare scene of praise. After a long time, Alan agrees to rest before turning in the sorcery stones. A bright lady welcomes him rear with open arms and bold affection. But Alan has already slipped away, leaving her shouting in comedic frustration. With the labyrinth conquered, Alan walks past the city, his heart lighter than before. Now wealthier and stronger, he considers his next goal, but something private comes first. He decides to tell his mom all when he returns house. Smiling with Will, he and his mom's strategy to start a fresh existence elsewhere. Alan walked past the door to the familiar scent of house, taking his mom middle of preparation. She froze briefly, then dropped all to wrap him in a tight hug. Worry marked across her expression as she inspected him for injuries. With a soft grin, he assured her of his safety, casually mentioning the dangers he'd faced, holding rear wetness. She confessed she'd been fine during his absence, though her shaking voice hinted otherwise. They shared stories, tiny, everyday moments that held deep meaning. Even the mention of smelly clothing drew kind laughs. Watching her, Alan made a soft vow. He wouldn't allow destiny to steal her away from him. Over meal, Alan's mom suggested he could stay and use his pay as he pleased. She assured him he wasn't reliable for anyone else. Though the tiny apartment possessed many limitations, Alan considered the sacrifices required for an adventurer's lifestyle. He still believed residing apart wasn't right. His gaze shifted toward her as he explained his true wish. It wasn't just about space. He wanted her to live more comfortably. He imagined a house they could share, where she could handle the housework and stay close. Hearing this, she reached out softly, calling his name with emotion in her voice. Though she called him a fool, Alan's mom grinned kindly, agreeing to search for a fresh house together. His expression lit up with soft excitement. The next time, he brought her to the association. Familiar faces welcomed them, surprised yet pleased to see her there. She nervously presented herself, unsure how much Alan possessed about her. Still, she tried her best to make a good impression. Single association member commended Alan's dedication, calling him their most promising newcomer. Hearing that others wanted him in their party, her gazes widened with dignity and astonishment. Alan considered the advantages of ranking up to D, knowing it would free him from current limitations and open doors to bigger opportunities. As discussions shifted toward housing, he mentally weighed his fate plans, waving off party invitations until the right time. Concerned for safety, his mom voiced doubts about residing near the association. Alan recognized the risk but pressed for help finding a safer location. Just then, Monica arrived, surprised to learn Alan became preparing to move. Her appearance changed the tone with familiarity and warmth. Alan proudly ate his aims, now earning more. He wanted a larger location to live with his mom. Monica bent in with a bold grin and offered Alan a surprising invitation to her house, taking him completely off guard. Both Alan and his mom responded in bewilderment, unsure of what Monica truly required by her proposal. With a laugh, she clarified that her father managed an apartment structure and she could help them discover a suitable location. The quoted rent was bright, and Alan paused, doing mental math as his mom nervously asked for his thoughts. Despite the cost, he suggested they go see it, figuring it might actually be a rare, worthwhile bargain. Before heading out, Katerina showed her desire to greet the association members, thankful her child had been encircled by kind citizens. Meanwhile, Alan awkwardly responded to Monica's earlier proposal, only to be joked with again, flustering him as she playfully pressed the misunderstanding. Their group soon arrived at the structure. Monica, now fully in guide mode, explained its convenient place and pointed to the available top-floor unit. Climbing the stairs, she noted the higher floor's unpopularity due to its steep access, though it functioned fine for her. Within, Alan remained in awe. The room became far larger than expected, and his mom wondered if it was too much for them. Alan explored the upper level of the unit, considering whether to claim the lofted space as his bedroom, while his mom doubted she could manage the climb. Looking out from the window, he was captivated by the obvious sight of the remote castle rising above the city. With will in his gazes, he whispered to himself the goal was close, he just required to push a little more. Katerina showed surprise at the affordable rent, and Alan addressed Monica with a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. Monica grinned kindly, believing in his potential and calling it a worthwhile investment in someone with a bright fate. Alan turned to his mom for confirmation. Seeing her uncertain, he confidently announced they'd care for the room as long as she liked it too. Monica assured them it became fine, joking that Alan could repay her once he became a better boy, prompting a grin from Katerina. Their house hunting journey arrived to a swift termination. The very first property had all they required. Returning to the association, Alan reported their decision to stay under Monica's caution, earning a nod of consent. His guildmates were pleased. Alan confessed it became far nicer than the house they possessed before. Alan's guildmates admired how far he'd come, surprised he was already providing a fresh house for his mom. When asked about moving out, he casually answered, "Starting now," prompting amused disbelief and support from those around him. Single association member raised his voice to rally the others, proudly announcing Alan's big step, moving out with his mom. Though Alan tried to object, the others pressed on, assisting. Touched by his devotion, banter filled the room, making it obvious they cared deeply. Friendly jabs continued as the fighters argued over tasks, eager to lend a hand in their own chaotic way. Alan asked his mom what to do. Shaken by all support, Monica softly comforted them, calling Alan like a child to the whole association. Katerina warned Alan to treasure such gentleness, recognizing how fortunate he was to have such wonderful citizens around him. While guildmates bickered over who became too drunk to help, Alan grinned to himself. Their antics created him feel strangely kind within. She wiped her wetness, touched by their generosity. Alan remained by a bit frantic at her emotional response. Afterward, the association members helped move furniture into the fresh house, despite bumps, narrow spaces, and minor complaints. A line of association members marched past city holding furniture, drawing interested gazes. Alan wiped his brow as the last load arrived. Within, the space still seemed roomy, despite being furnished. The simplicity of their old existence created the move feel surprisingly light. With the job done, single guildmate raised a cheer and announced it became time for a banquet to celebrate. Katarina and Alan looked puzzled, but became told it became tradition any cause to drink was cause enough. Grateful, Katarina addressed the explorers sincerely, thanking them for all their help that time. Katarina remained before the gathered association, expressing heartfelt gratitude for their gentleness and support toward her child. Smiling proudly, Monica heard as thanks extended to all from the porters to those who helped them settle in. Her speech began to stretch, prompting Alan to silently plead for brevity while the others chuckled. Raising a glass, she toasted to their fate, wishing all happiness and luck in their endeavors. Just before things dispersed, she turned to Alan and warned him she became off to greet more guests. Leaving him smiling beside her, morning light filled the room as Katarina swept the floor. Nearby, Alan saw silently, vowing to make their fresh existence even better. His thoughts reached beyond just kin. He wanted to guard this peaceful existence for Monica, the association, and all who had supported him. While others drank and laughed, Alan calmly sipped fruit juice, gazes set on single goal, breaking the destiny that once appeared inevitable. Teasing swiftly came. The association couldn't help but joke about his beautiful mom, sending him into flustered denial. Thankfully, Master Rudolph walked in, silencing the audience with a single steady command. With a fierce glare, Rudolph slammed his mug down, declaring he'd be the only single allowed to make a move. The rest became to rear off. Katarina laughed politely while others protested. Alan couldn't believe his mentor became joining the competition for his mom's affection. Jaw clenched, he withdrew his earlier consent, muttering that exceptions must be created, especially when it arrived to his master afterward. Solely in the forest, he tried his equipment under peaceful skies, letting out a long breath. Careful observation showed good penetration. Still, he required better rounds for the strategy he possessed in mind. Steam rose from the tub as Alan soaked, muscles sore after days of preparation. Nearby, 2 rifles bent against the barrier, single full-size, the other compact. He'd smelted FMJ rounds for both. As he relaxed, a teasing voice interrupted. Katarina joked about joining him, prompting a deadpan refusal. Not long after, a towering armored figure dropped, holes pierced past its helmet the bullets possessed. Done their job. Enemies never appeared to stop, but this dungeon created for perfect grinding. He kept pushing past week after week. With over 100 laps completed, Alan had gathered sorcery stones for the association and strengthened his will even more. Alan handed over a beer in thanks while being advised to review his status. His efforts against goblins possessed started to draw notice. Upon checking, he found a fresh nickname, Goblin Slayer, earned from consistent extermination and rising experience as a novice adventurer. In the dense forest, a pair of massive boars marched forward, disturbing the peace with their heavy snorts and trampling hooves. A lone youthful boy went into the forest with a rifle slung over his shoulder, careful but resolved. He stopped briefly, noting that he became just beyond the suburbs of Altman, a region too close to leave such threats unchecked. The boars weren't just perilous, they became resources. Their bodies, mapped and branded, became vital for meat and supplies. Sitting beside a downed creature, he thought on the job forward. Orcs emerged endlessly from a labyrinth deep within, and he possessed no choice but to confront it. Alan confirmed his earlier guess, the hollow point bullets functioned as planned. Every successful hunt not only provided materials but also progressed his association remaining. These bullets, known for expanding on impact, became familiar to him from another existence. Against stronger foes, he planned to rely on FMJ and Kalash rounds while continuing to use smaller calibers for standard threats. He studied each type's role with caution. As night fell, Alan studied his results. Tomorrow, he would enter the Great Labyrinth fully readied. Before resting, he enjoyed a rich dish of braised orc shank, savoring both victory and the spoils of his strategy. Alan gave thanks, but stayed careful about unknown food. Fresh worlds often held unseen risks, even in their cuisine. Surprisingly, the orc meat exceeded expectations. Though rougher than pork, its flavor and texture held depth, especially around the skin and bones. The next morning, Alan gazed at the sky above the village. Thoughts of house emerged. He expected to share this location with his mom's single time. Within the labyrinth, he advanced using concealment tactics. Middle of bosses protected each floor, but his methods showed effective. After battle, Alan harvested what he could. With limited space, he prioritized collecting sorcery stones already used to the routine of survival. At the heart of the labyrinth, the Orc King loomed, encircled by all the middle of bosses Alan had fought before. Its appearance radiated menace, and warned Alan of its savory meat. Without delay, Alan took aim. His strategy was basic: eliminate isolated healers and support units swiftly to weaken the formation. Targeted strikes landed with precision, Mages and priests came by a smokescreen withdraw. Even the orc general took significant damage during the push. Abruptly, the enemy responded fiercely. A sweeping counterattack forced Alan to dive for cover. The general unleashed a burst of sorcery beyond expectation, exposing secret strength Alan had not anticipated. Alan assessed the battlefield. The Orc King's regeneration ability created things difficult, and its massive health pool demanded a strategy beyond brute power. Without wasting time, he launched another smokescreen. The same evasive tactics that possessed brought him this far would have to carry him forward again. The enemies anticipated his usual flanking maneuver and tightened into a defensive formation. He took a different angle and unleashed a blinding chili pepper extract, targeting their vision with practiced precision. Caught off guard, the orcs frantic. Bewilderment spread among their ranks as Alan readied to press the advantage. The disoriented orcs dropped in rapid succession. Alan stayed calm behind cover, striking cleanly past the commotion with trained precision. Abruptly, the Orc King's stirred luminous power rushed past its form, and Alan understood the beast was preparing to regenerate once more. He narrowed his gazes, the healing possessed already completed just as expected. Alan tightened his grip on the rifle, muttering in frustration. With a furious roar, the Orc King charged forward, shattering the floor beneath it. The sky trembled with every step. Alan responded with steady fire. Bullets tore past the smoke, but his gazes widened. The king wasn't slowing down. The Orc King smashed past the debris in a violent rush, sending wood and stone flying across the room. Alan was thrown to the floor. He scrambled rear, gazes broadly as the massive beast loomed over him. Understanding struck. This creature's dense fur and thick fat resembled a brown stance, likely enough to dull even hollow-point rounds. He reached for another rifle, considering the kalash bullet. With steady breath, he readied for a direct strike, though uncertain if it would penetrate. He took aim at the creature's throat, heart locked as the likely weak point. Alan fired toward the Orc King's heart, but the monster staggered forward, seemingly unfazed. His objective had absorbed the damage. Switching tactics, Alan aimed between the creature's gazes, hoping a direct shot would pierce its thick skull. The beast charged. Alan paused. His position gave him a bad angle, and he couldn't land the shot cleanly in time. The impact poured him across the floor. Pain shot past his form as the Orc King continued its relentless advance. Rising slowly, Alan clenched his jaw. It became obvious this wouldn't be a quick fight. He possessed to endure a drawn-out battle. Alan steadied his breathing, considering his next move. The idea of crafting slug rounds crossed his mind, but something seemed off. To his astonishment, the Orc King possessed dropped. Alan approached cautiously, puzzled by the unexpected stillness. A closer look showed the truth. His shot possessed landed in the heart after all. The beast possessed pushed past the pain until it finally gave out. Even with a mortal wound, the king possessed managed to launch single last charge. Alan couldn't help but admire its strength. With little space left, he packed what meat he could. This victory deserved to be tasted. At the labyrinth's termination, Alan found a treasure chest. Using his evaluation ability, he identified the reward, a bracelet of fertility. He frowned at its function, a charm to enhance reproduction. It seemed wildly inappropriate for an orc dungeon. With the Orc King defeated, Alan completed the first round of the Great Labyrinth, yet he couldn't help but question the logic of this realm sometime afterward. He arrived at the Elf Village airport. Children trained nearby while villagers moved with bright power. Grateful for their gentleness, Alan began returning regularly, drawn by their hospitality and the bright quality honey they sold. The village's playground possessed transformed into an archery training ground, but no single appeared to mind. Children practiced enthusiastically still. Alan knew not all was pleased. Sherry, the elf princess, voiced her annoyance about cutting down trees for infrastructure. Despite the commotion, Alan thought on a milestone he possessed finally turned 13. The scene passed silently amid the shouting. His efforts had paid off. He earned the Orc Slayer achievement, rising to rank D and level 23, a respectable growth from repeated dungeon runs. Rear at the airstrip, the elven ruler welcomed him kindly. As usual, the honey he asked for was readied, and the villagers supported him kindly. As Alan showed his gratitude, the villagers warned him of his role in rescuing them. Their warmth left little room for official thanks. Even when the elf ruler offered to waive his payment, Alan pressed on fair trade. With his level rising more slowly now, Alan decided it became time to expression more difficult labyrinths. Rumors of a fresh challenge possessed reached him. He announced his destination, the Labyrinth of the Wind Mountain. The journey would test all his skills. There, a blizzard phoenix expected. Stronger than any foe he'd faced, it identified the start of a truly perilous stage in his adventure. The elf ruler asked if his destination became perilous. Alan gave a reassuring nod, promising not to overexert himself. He showed her the amulet she once gifted him. She grinned kindly, touched that he still wore it. With sincere remarks, she wished Alan luck and trusted the charm would keep him safe. Alan responded with soft resolve. Just then, a frantic call rang out. Alan became smacked by an overeager greeting, caught completely off guard. A tiny fairy lamented she couldn't join his journey due to a contract. Despite her antics, Alan became secretly grateful for the distance. At the Xivan Explorers Association, a youthful boy made an unusual petition to enter the labyrinth of the Wind Mountains solely. Introducing himself as Alan, a 13-year-old D-rank adventurer, he stayed calm despite their skepticism. His serious gaze showed soft will. Before proceeding, the rules were outlined. Any unregistered entry or removal of items from the labyrinth would be treated as a criminal act. Once cleared, Alan agreed the warning to stay on the first floor and agreed the permit with gratitude. Though encircled by elite explorers, the lone boy stayed steady, aware of how others saw him, yet unfazed by doubt. Before him remained the towering labyrinth of the Wind Mountain. Though it held only 8 known levels, legend spoke of 30. Alan advanced with goal, undeterred by its reputation. His strategy was obvious: conquer each floor repeatedly until he went into the school. Abruptly, giant vampire bats emerged from the darkness, wings slicing past the sky as they dove toward him. With swift reflexes, he raised his weapon and fired. The beasts fell immediately, their threat neutralized by crushing power. His gun, a sorcery replica of the Saiga 12 shotgun, delivered power unmatched by conventional means crafted for battles like this. Blown away by the results, Alan admired the sheer destructive power of his shotgun. The scene wasn't elegant, but it became effective. With Saiga in hand, he advanced effortlessly past the labyrinth, surpassing seasoned explorers and stretching level 28 without pause. The floating islets shone a mystic puzzle, hitting tiny targets with wind sorcery to teleport forward. However, the sequence mattered. A single error would send him to the entry or into the abyss, with success resolved by chance. As flying enemies attacked from above, Alan held his ground, relying on both his weapon and prior knowledge to survive. Rather than follow the main route, Alan chose a secret path, stepping off course to seek something others might miss. He recalled that a secret room could be found below the islet, accessible by navigating its side correctly in-game. With each step, Alan charged his special ability, Smelt, preparing to forge or enhance equipment using accumulated power. Within the room, he found a rare treasure: 2 substitute rings, capable of reviving the wearer once after death. Knowing their in-game roles, Alan took both without delay, scheming to equip single immediately and save the other for afterward. Remaining before the final door, Alan readied himself. With a substitute ring equipped, he possessed no cause to stall any longer. Within the dim room, he faced the last guardian of the labyrinth, a towering figure waiting in quiet. The enemy showed itself as the Blizzard Phoenix, a powerful creature of ice and flight. Without notice, the beast launched its assault, sending freezing winds and shimmering feathers crashing forward. Anticipating the ambush, Alan awakened a protective barrier past his smelted shield, prepared for the decisive clash, just as the game had taught him. Dodging the first strike, Alan kept his distance. He knew that surviving the opening attack became key to the fight. From there, he unleashed a rapid combination of concealment and gunfire, trying to wear the Phoenix down with precision shots. However, the enemy adapted. It evaded his bullets and retaliated with freezing winds and ice arrows, threatening to overwhelm his defenses. Thinking swiftly, Alan conjured a boulder to shield himself, buying precious seconds against the relentless assault. He stopped to reassess, scheming to weaken the Phoenix from afar until it fell within range of Saiga's decisive shot. Alan understood the rhythm. His only option became to trade blows from afar in a drawn-out skirmish of hit and run. He swiftly evaded incoming strikes, generating another boulder for cover before sliding behind it to avoid the ice barrage. Using the boulder as a shield, he waited patiently for the blizzard to subside, conserving power and assessing the enemy's movement. Once the assault stopped, Alan resumed the cycle: attack, concealment, withdraw, then fresh shelter. Each intervention timed with practiced precision. Just as he neared his opportunity, the Phoenix shifted tactics, unleashing a freezing turmoil that engulfed all in its path. Seeing the Blizzard Phoenix plummet, Alan seized the chance. He hurried forward, prepared to deliver a final close-range shot, but as he sprinted, his footing gave out. The slick, icy ground caused him to slip uncontrollably. Panic set in. He yelled in vain, realizing he couldn't stop in time. The falling beast hurtled toward him. With a violent crash, the Phoenix slammed into the ground just inches away, throwing up ice and debris. Alan landed hard but unharmed. The Phoenix was down, motionless. He caught his breath, aware how narrowly he'd escaped death. Knowing the danger wasn't over, Alan readied determination to fight properly before the Phoenix could recover its strength. He approached the fallen creature, shivering as he examined its form. The intense cold seeped past the feathers and ground. To his astonishment, the feathers didn't melt when removed. Carefully, he began collecting the tail and wing feathers single by single within the treasure room. Alan found light bones worth harvesting and a sealed chest waiting to be opened. Though the fabled sword drew notice, it was the odd device tucked in the corner of the sorcery stone synthesizer that truly intrigued him. Alan examined the tiny sorcery stones, intrigued by the synthesizer's ability to combine them into larger, more powerful forms. A visual account showed the value in merging 16 tiny stones could create single rare, bright-grade gem worth far more. Realizing the profit margin, he devised a strategy. Repeating dungeon runs and using synthesis would steadily increase his wealth. For now, he chose to remain low-key, farming resources silently. He promised to hide the extent of his progress. Rear and city, Alan blended in, easily returning to menial chores, all while concealment the strength he had just proven subterranean. Though he continued doing part-time labor, Alan confirmed he would soon enroll in bright studies, balancing both paths carefully. He mentioned his recent promotion to D rank, noting it aligned with finally attending official classes. Within, his mentor urged him to finish a petition that would push him to C rank, particularly to avoid being underestimated at studies. Alan didn't seem concerned about ranks, but his master pressed the difference mattered for eligibility and reputation. Seeing past Alan's evasiveness, the mentor softly pressed. He clearly knew the boy was concealment much more than he confessed. Alan paused to explain himself. He didn't want anyone discovering his fighting style reliant on guns and concealment sorcery. Before he could clarify more, a trio of elder explorers appeared, eagerly welcoming him as a fresh crew member caught off guard. Alan questioned the arrangement. Working with a group of experienced fighters wasn't what he expected, but his mentor left no room for debate. A task possessed already been scheduled, and orders became to meet at dawn. Even more shocking, his association petition had been absorbed without him knowing. All had already been set in motion. Alan tried to protest, but single of the drunk crew members abruptly clung to him, causing immediate discomfort and panic. Despite Alan's complaints, the group became rejected casually. His complaints about alcohol, when ignored as orders for tomorrow's task, stayed steady. Carlin bent forward with bright gazes, urging Alan to reveal something she couldn't wait to see. Her power filled the room as Alan glanced over. Somebody nearby warned her not to interrupt, prompting a light-hearted pout from Carlin while Alan stayed silently composed. Not long after, the journey began. Alan took his location among the escort crew, guiding a line of wagons toward the remote village of Yerstorf. Their client, Dirk, journeyed the route regularly, managing supply runs whenever the village faced shortages. By selling essential goods in the metropolis, Dirk ensured Yerstorf stayed stocked, then created his way rear without delay. While the wagon rattled along the trail, Carlin bent toward Alan and eagerly asked to see his sorcery once they reached the village. Alan gave a soft nod in agreement. The escort group, created up of experienced association members, noted how closely Carlin clung to Alan far more than anyone else. Their route wound past rough terrain created riskier by recent bandit attacks that possessed damage passing caravans. Alan explained his wind-based sorcery, which could repel enemies. Though he kept the details vague, he confessed leaving his wind sorcery weapons behind. Yet Carlin pressed he showcase his abilities anyway. Alan showed a compact weapon, his wind sorcery gun, crafted in the image of a Makarov pistol, chosen for its concealability and soft operation. Though confident in its effectiveness, he paused with a troubling thought. What if he ever possessed to use it on a person? The weight of that question lingered. Could he shoot someone who wasn't a monster, but a residing human? Carlin noticed his anxiety and asked softly, snapping Alan out of his thoughts with a forced grin. With the path forward turning narrow and perilous, the stake of raiders became very true. The caravan crept along a narrow mountain trail, its path flanked by cliffs and thick forest. Secret gazes saw from above. Abruptly, boulders tumbled down the slope. Alan and the others responded immediately as commotion broke out. Horses neighed, and Carlin clung to him tightly. From the cliffs, armed raiders began their ambush, flanking the convoy from the rear as well. Weapons drawn, they encircled the wagons, blocking any chance of escape as strain spiked among the guards. Their chief walked forward, smug and confident, announcing they would be taking all, including the cargo. The association members swiftly assessed the enemy's numbers. Orders became issued. Dirk became told to stay secret while the others readied for battle. Arrows flew across the battlefield as single of the escorts took aim with precision. Driving rear a charging bandit, steel clashed on both sides. Blades connected with fierce opposition as the attackers pressed in from every angle. Amid the commotion, Alan became called upon to join the fray. A teammate pressed him to demonstrate his sorcery in combat. Delay struck him. These weren't monsters, but citizens. The decision weighed strongly on his conscience. Seeing an attacker rush at his ally, Alan responded instinctively. He yelled the spell's name and unleashed his Wind Cutter sorcery. The incoming bandit was knocked rear middle of charge, his blade dropping as the slicing wind struck him with power. Panic spread past the enemy ranks. Their chief, alarmed by the surprising sorcery, ordered a withdrawal. As the raiders began to escape, single of the escorts pressed Alan not to let them escape. Torn between restraint and responsibility, Alan paused. The command to kill clashed with his conscience. Battle finished with the raiders fleeing. Alan remained in quiet, watching them disappear into the distance, conflicted. The rear guards confirmed the area became secure. The attackers possessed numbered more than expected, but the threat became temporarily over. Alan's teammates regrouped. Single of them asked about the enemy's hideout, but none possessed found it. Their numbers had clearly grown. Frustration boiled over. Jared challenged Alan, lecture him for holding rear when lethal power might have finished it more decisively. Yet another voice chimed in, urging caution. Killing citizens, even enemies, wasn't constantly the right path. Brutal consequences became laid bare. Survivors of raids often faced death, slavery, or worse. Sparing enemies risked fate. Violence. Single escort gave harsh advice. Killing wasn't just acceptable, it became expected. Mercy, he cautioned, possessed no location on the road. Silently, the boy heard. Warnings resounded behind him, pressing the weight of reality onto uncertain shoulders. Tasks resumed. Clearing debris and restoring order helped work period concentrate from the dark lesson to immediate responsibility. Arrival at Yersdorf brought relief. Since that battle, no more raiders dared challenge them along the way. Shouts resounded past the village as children recognized the returning wagon. Term spread swiftly. Supplies had arrived from the metropolis. Locals hurried to help unload crates. Bright greetings filled the sky while hands moved briskly to support the effort. Excitement swelled as fresh clothing became shown off. Some admired the styles, others scolded the impromptu fashion display in public. Laughs came a light-hearted complaint. Someone joked with Carlin for being just like the other countryside girls she was criticizing. Gifts and medicine were distributed with gratitude. Amid the sound, Carlin chased after a yellow ribbon she claimed as hers. A soft scene turned serious. Harsh remarks cut past. If leadership had been his, the task would have failed. Cause for that failure was already known. Sparing lives while noble wasn't a luxury on the battlefield. Raiders, orcs, goblins, it made no difference. Next time, delay must be replaced with will. Before reflection could settle in, a familiar voice interrupted. A promise about sorcery hadn't been forgotten. More children gathered, eagerly chanting. Whichever weight lingered from combat, their excitement pushed it aside for now. Wind sorcery delighted the children. Gusts spun past the sky until dusk, laughs trailing as parents called them house. Afterward, tables filled under lamplight. Locals gathered for a feast, raising cups in celebration of safe arrival. Gratitude rushed deep, but tradition experienced its part too. Hospitality toward outsiders wasn't just polite, it became expected. A soft custom lingered beneath the surface. In isolated places, newcomers became pressed to help preserve bloodlines. Single bold invitation caught him off guard, blushing and flustered. He stammered past rejection, asking about the absurd circumstance. Morning brought groggy greetings. Companions, drained from more than battle, joked wearily while the village resounded with surprising sounds. Despite the fatigue, children gathered once again. Smiles came back swiftly, their bright gazes begging for another show. Abruptly, strain shifted. A frantic voice called out for the chief. Haste replacing happiness, shouts grew louder. A name pierced past Carlin. Fright gripped the room as understanding struck. Stillness broke, term hit like lightning. Carlin possessed disappeared, abducted while no single noticed. Gazes widened, hearts dropped. Calm was over. News of Carlin's abduction spreads past the city, casting a heavy quiet. Alan hears the report and freezes in disbelief. At house, he gazes at the younger children, his chest tightening. He recalls the scene they left the barrier to gather crops. Now sure, that was when it happened. Alan blames himself. Guilt overtakes him. He rushes out of the house, resolved to act, meeting Jared as he leaves. Wetness mixed with sweat as Alan shouts he failed to stop the threat. He failed to kill them when he possessed the chance. Jared questions his will, urging caution. But Alan is steady, he's going to raid the raiders solely. Alan tries to rally support, but Jared warns of consequences. Explorers won't act without cause, and retaliation could bring ruin to the village. A shadowy figure emerges with a chilling claim. 3 children are now in his command, and their safety hangs by a thread. At the gate, the raiders make demands: surrender resources and citizens or expression slaughter and destruction. Any opposition would lead to immediate bloodshed. He voices regret, asking about Jared's choices. If intervention possessed been taken earlier, things might have been different. Jared reflects grimly. The raiders acted smart, and even if delayed, their threat became inevitable. While others paused, a single proposal emerged to raid the hideout and defend the village at once. Despite doubts, Alan gave a steady answer. Dark warnings came. A single scene of delay could cost lives. Resolved gazes connected the challenge with will, recollections of a smiling expression pushing him forward. Support arrived unexpectedly. Explorers who once remained rear now agreed the task, offering strength for the battle forward. Single villager walked forward, pleading for his siblings' safety. Wetness streamed down his expression as desperation broke past. Under the moonlit sky, a soft vow became created. No matter what, she would be saved. Questions about the raiders' place led them deep into the forest. Based on the timeline their concealment spot possessed to be nearby, estimates placed the hideout just a few hours away on foot. Every scene counted as they moved under the cover of darkness. From a hilltop vantage point, a sweeping sight showed likely hideout spots nestled in the remote woods. A faint watchfire glowed near a known cave, once housed to a former gang. It likely housed around 30 fighters. Without delay, Alan planned to infiltrate. Doubts became cast, but his decision stayed steady. Confidence replaced doubt. Alan assured them stealth became his strength, and the village couldn't afford delay with the threat looming. Questions about his solo strategy arose. He broke down the enemy's reduced numbers, showing that victory wasn't as far-fetched as it appeared. A strategy formed in his mind. While testing his setup, he comforted Jared, who stayed skeptical about infiltration. Trust didn't come easily, but the stake became agreed. Single more chance was granted. Alan promised a silent entry and safe return beneath clouded skies. A final whisper affirmed his will. Failure wasn't an option. Approaching the hideout, Alan cautioned Jared to stay behind. Too much movement together risked detection, and the enemy possessed laid-out sound snares. Using concealment sorcery, he moved unseen. Even his closest ally failed to notice him slip away. With his ability active, Alan crept toward the cave entry. A lone guard remained nearby, prompting him to stay low and observe. Recognition struck this boy once escaped him. Regret lingered from the last encounter where he couldn't deliver a fatal blow. Strain spiked as they locked gazes. Alan braced himself, needing to act before proceeding more. With evaluation sorcery, the cave structure arrived into sight. A sprawling and intricate arrangement reached forward, far larger than expected. Navigating more within, Alan began analyzing the enemy's positions. Grasping their patrol routes became crucial to proceed undetected. A three-way fork emerged deeper. 13 fighters became already accounted for, heightening the stake with every step taken. In single room, several children sat behind iron bars unharmed for now. Relief arrived briefly, but Carlin became nowhere among them. Gazes shifted toward the sealed passage. Hope flickered that answers and Carlin lay beyond that barricaded path. A sealed passage led to a deeper room. Supplies scattered beyond hinted at its importance. Resolve filled Alan's gazes. Heavy wooden beams blocked the way, but he found a route for them. Every step was deliberate, quiet, a necessity. Past a narrow opening, he spotted movement. What he saw twisted his look into panic. Carlin lay helpless under a boy's weight. Fright and exhaustion identified her expression. Alan's alarm turned immediately to fury. Without delay, he struck. Rage powered his fist, delivering a crushing blow that resounded past the room. Blows landed without mercy. The assailant dropped under the flurry of strikes, left motionless in the aftermath. Panting strongly, Alan glanced at the young woman curled on the floor. Recognition and relief emerged as he whispered her name. He extended a shaking hand, offering reassurance she possessed. Endured enough. Escape would begin now. Without notice, Carlin clung to him, holding rear sobs. A single term burst from her lips, filled with desperation and love. Caution came back swiftly. A soft reminder to stay soft came. She agreed, swallowing her fright. After leading Carlin to safety, Alan gave her instructions to remain secret. The task wasn't over. Others still required rescuing. With the entry blocked, he assured her of his return. She agreed silently, grasping the stake he faced. In concealment, he approached another room. A boy sat solely not aware. Alan readied his weapon with cold precision. Jared's remarks resounded in his mind, painting raiders as inhuman. Recollections of what Carlin endured hardened his will. No delay came. A silenced shot rang out, ending another threat in dark quiet. Softly, Alan reached the cell and signaled the children. Hope flickered in their gazes as he whispered his promise. With Carlin by their side, the rescued kids came closely. Alan swiftly counted their number and kept track. 2 enemies already down. 11 still stayed. Before moving forward, he instructed them to brace themselves. A barricade required sealing from within, cutting off escape. Elsewhere, raiders noticed something incorrect. Bewilderment grew as they questioned the sealed room concealment their chief. Alan remained guard before a carved emblem. Strain rising, unknown markings hinted at something more than just a concealment location. A brilliant flash broke out from the carved seal, shockwaves blasted outward, hurling bodies past the sky like ragdolls. Beyond, raiders were thrown into commotion. Jared saw in stunned disbelief as debris and limbs flew in every direction. Bewilderment turned to anger. Jared stormed in demanding an account. Alan, calm and focused, confirmed it became the signal. The aftermath showed groaning survivors. Alan remained over them, torn between mercy and the urge to finish them off. The cave shuddered, priorities shifted. He chose to evacuate the children before anything else. Bloodied and enraged, a bandit lunged to strike Alan down, but became swiftly countered by Jared's unexpected intervention. Arriving just in time, Jared walked over the fallen attacker. The commotion began to settle as Alan looked up in relief. With danger behind them, the group ready to return. Alan led the children out while Jared saw over their stride. Wetness welled in Carlin's gazes. Emotion finally burst as safety confirmed the task's termination. Bandit heads lined the village gate, a gruesome warning to others. Confident in their strength, the veterans set out to finish the job. Alan, though eager, became instructed to remain behind and assist with preparations for their return to the metropolis. Within the raiders' hideout, the remaining enemies became put down. The seniors acted without delay, bound by responsibility more than emotion. Remembering his own experience, Alan agreed, the blood on his hands. As the wagon rolled to the gate, Alan climbed aboard. The journey to the metropolis and to whichever arrived next was about to begin. As Alan ready to leave, he became approached by Carlin and the village children. With the bandit task finished, Alan set out once more. He promised to return someday, leaving the village behind as he climbed aboard the wagon. By the age of 15, Alan possessed already achieved the rank of C-class adventurer, earning recognition as the youngest to do so. Before his departure, he had a soft scene with a close companion, receiving remarks of encouragement and a sincere wish for luck. Dressed in uniform and resolve, Alan walked into a fresh chapter, prepared to expression whichever expected beyond the gates. Alan walked onto the Kingdom School grounds. His heart steady before him remained the grand campus of the Kingdom Bright Studies, his fresh start. As he joined the incoming students in the grand auditorium, the clerk announced that only 39 possessed been agreed this term. Among them was Alan. Despite hoping for Class B, Alan became assigned to class dominated by aristocrats. Knowing the rules, he understood that speaking out of go, as a common-born student, could cause problems. Encircled by aristocracy, Alan kept his distance until a noble young woman named Anastasia walked in, turning every head in the room. Among the noble students, single figure remained out. Anastasia's elegance and commanding appearance captivated Alan more than the grandeur of the studies itself. He couldn't be sure, but it seemed like she glanced in his direction. Around her became other elite students: Oscar, the refined air of Wilmot, and Marcus, a brilliant scholar. More prestigious names filled the room: Leonardo, child of the Imperial Guard commander, and Claude, a kingdom prince gifted with divine strength. The nobles swiftly noticed Alan. Their remarks made light of his common-born student status, but he responded calmly, unfazed by their mockery. As another powerful student went into the hall, Alan's notice shifted. The arrival of Royal Prince Karl Heinz drew every eye. His confident stride and noble aura created it obvious why others viewed him with awe. Alan's concentrate shifted as a young woman approached. Her calm, graceful appearance remained out, raising a soft curiosity within him. She presented herself as Amy von Braze, a fellow student. Her kind grin caught Alan off guard. Amy showed she was also a common-born student and recalled Alan from their earlier studies. She admired his perfect academic record. Choosing a seat beside him, Amy invited conversation. Alan, surprised yet grateful, agreed to talk until the ceremony began. Alan thought on the entry ceremony, realizing how distracted he'd been. This scene became required for Amy, the heroine of the story. Amy's grin stunned him. She embodied all expected of a game heroine: charming, bright, and effortlessly radiant. Orientation passed in a blur. A week afterward, Alan settled into the dorms and shared brief remarks with his mom before parting. Despite appearances, Alan seemed isolated. No single spoke to him. Encircled by nobles, he sat silently, completely solely. Meanwhile, Amy walked confidently beside the royal prince, her story progressing while Alan stayed a minor conduct. Studies rules demanded that commoners bow quietly to nobles in hallways. Alan came the protocol without complaint. While classes finally began, Alan noticed Amy no longer recognized him. The initial gentleness she'd shown possessed disappeared. During lessons, instructors emphasized that mastering sorcery required not only activation but precise command and awareness, and outdoor lessons soon came. The teacher asked who could already use sorcery, prompting students to reveal their capabilities. Alan looked on fewer hands than expected. Despite assuming mystic proficiency became required, not many appeared confident enough to respond. During the sorcery training session, the instructor asked the royal prince to demonstrate. Karl Heinz agreed confidently, eager to show off his ability. With a luminous orb forming in his hand, the prince confirmed the job and ready to attack. His flame sorcery sparked to existence. He launched the spell with precision, striking the objective dead middle. Applause came as the teacher commended his flawless execution. Next, Anastasia was called forward. The instructor moved on to another element of sorcery command and attribute use focused and intense. Anastasia awakened her spell. Her sorcery glimmered with power, drawing all's notice to her growing strength. Anastasia unleashed a powerful attack, destroying the reinforced objective with ease. Her display left the audience stunned. The royal prince, humiliated by the comparison, yelled at her in frustration. His dignity possessed been wounded in front of all. He claimed to have held rear, accusing her of showing him up. Anastasia rejected his complaint without delay. Fueled by anger, the prince released an intense burst of sorcery, ignoring warnings as the power spiraled out of command. A violent explosion erupts during the practical exam, sending shockwaves past the arena. Amid the commotion, the royal prince recoils while a resolute young woman strides forward, hand raised, channeling a spell. In an instant, a towering barrier of water rises, shielding the students from the oncoming blast. Screams echo as debris crashes against the mystic barrier. Once the smoke clears, the prince is found dropped, prompting a surge of panic among his classmates. Single student kneels beside him. Ami swiftly begins treatment, her healing sorcery luminous softly. Worry tightens her brow. Regaining consciousness, the prince gazes at his hand, awestruck. His gaze drifts to Amy, understanding dawning. Ami reaches out with worry, checking the royal prince's condition as he regains full consciousness. Lowering her gaze, Amy blushes, exposing that her deeds became motivated by loyalty to someone else. Her humility stands in contrast to the praise she receives. Meanwhile, others reflect on the outcome, relieved that the prince suffered only minor injuries. Soft speculation begins. Possessed Amy truly altered the original course of incidents. Time passes, and the bond between Amy and the prince visibly strengthens. Their closeness deepens. Yet jealousy festers, murmurs of her origins go harsh, and Amy begins to express targeted bullying. Anastasia reappears at the school accompanied by girls once believed to have disappeared after civil unrest. Their appearance draws immediate notice. Confronting a group of students, Anastasia reprimands them harshly for gossiping, alerting them of their duties as nobles. Her stern tone silences them. Meanwhile, Amy silently notices the work period and atmosphere. Feeling isolated, she wonders why her classmates have started avoiding her. Behind closed doors, rumors spread more. Some accuse Amy of manipulating others past charm to gain help with the prince and others. Observing the circumstance, single student reflects on how different Amy feels from the version he knew in the original game. Amy silently endures her loneliness, reflecting on her position once a common-born student, now thrown into aristocratic society, targeted by bullies and suspicion. Within the school, factions have clearly formed. Anastasia leads single, the royal prince the other. Amy, however, stands solely with no allies. Despite this, Anastasia keeps hostilities at bay. Her own faction is tiny, but she restrains them from escalating the conflict. Meanwhile, the royal prince's side shows little affection for Amy. Though they accept her appearance, their motives seem strategic rather than sincere. Even as others conspire to clear Anastasia, the royal prince remains fixated on Amy, ignoring his own fiancé entirely. Alan reflects under the shower, troubled by the prince's unchecked power and the corrupt aristocracy that surrounds him. He fears the realm may be heading toward ruin. Throughout Study's existence, Alan maintains a reserved stance. He avoids unnecessary interaction, observing both commoners and nobles from a distance. As exams conclude, a tense atmosphere settles over the school. Summer arrives, but uncertainty lingers. Before the break, students are warned to prepare for their upcoming independent study, an assignment that carries lasting consequences. Class rankings are showed. Independent study will now determine student placement, sharpening the line between elite and normal. Anastasia approaches Alan, calling out to verify his name. Her direct manner catches him off guard, but he responds respectfully. Rather than looking down on him, she praises Alan's academic performance, impressed by his humility despite being a top scorer as a common-born student. Learning of his adventuring experience, she acknowledges his skills and promises to send a messenger with more instructions. Before leaving, Anastasia offers a polite apology for the interruption, surprising Alan with her grace. As she departs, Alan wonders why he became chosen. The term ends and summer vacation begins. Alan introduces himself to the student crew as their appointed guide for exploring the nearby ruins, remaining before the full group with a bright look. As preparations begin, Anastasia quietly questions how the circumstance unfolded this way. Meanwhile, the group readies to depart. While walking, Alan explains the dangers forward, warning them about horned rabbits known to attack travelers. The petition arrived directly from Anastasia's single he couldn't refuse. Two confident students boast of their training. Sure they won't be harmed by mere beasts. Others joke casually about hunting and cooking the beasts, waving off the warning with arrogance. Jokes and teasing fly among the group, with Marcus making fun of another's cooking skills. Some students laugh, while others grow increasingly tired. Amy's kind gesture toward Alan sparks a light-hearted argument. Several boys compete over who she belongs to. Ignoring her obvious discomfort, Anastasia observes quietly, unimpressed by the escalating uproar. The circumstance threatens to break into a fight until she intervenes with a cold stare. Soon, the royal prince reminds all to pick up the speed, citing kingdom expectations. Strain breaks as the group regains concentrate. Alan, still flustered, follows behind as orders are barked at him with little patience. At forest's edge, the party encounters an ancient stone ruin. Crumbling stride, damp moss, and broken pillars give it an unstable look. Ascending the stairs proves difficult as the surface becomes slick and uneven. Several members lose balance, forcing others to slow their speed and proposal support. Observing the circumstance, the protagonist realizes the script has already shifted. A luminous stone provides limited light, exposing ancient walls and confined pathways stretching deeper subterranean. Subtle changes in mood emerge, while the protagonist remains watchful, aware that even minor deviations could change the unfolding destiny. Within the luminous ruin, the light reflects off the walls and draws all's notice. Questions about danger surface as the group recalls the ruin's former. Doubt spreads when nothing appears as expected. Strain rises briefly as frustration is directed toward the empty result of the exploration. Walking deeper, the group confirms the room holds no threats. The sky feels stale, and the room offers little of interest beyond bare stone. More reflection reveals the truth of the location. Treasures once stored here became already taken during a prior examination, leaving only an empty ruin behind the ruin. Noting how goblins once occupied a decaying structure so close to the kingdom metropolis, Amy abruptly strides aside, crouching near the barrier as if she sensed something unusual. At the same time, the protagonist recalls a familiar spot from the original script and feels sure they have reached a key area. Alan, the red-haired youthful boy, looks impatient as complaints about the smell and arrangement spread past the group. Amy remains thoughtful, staring forward and quiet. Realizes her curiosity has been sparked, suggesting that this ruin still holds meaning beyond what appears on the surface. The parchment's discovery should have been random, yet Amy moved directly to the exact place as if guided by prior knowledge. Watching her closely, doubt forms in his mind. Her reactions feel familiar, raising the unsettling possibility that she understands this realm in the same way he does. Beyond the ruin, the group regathers while remaining watchful. Confidence from the escorts keeps all calm as they begin preparing to leave the area safely. Alan appears uneasy, glancing rear at the ruin as if something still feels unresolved. Before departing, Amy acknowledges the successful exploration with soft satisfaction. He realizes the realm is slowly changing. As expected hostility fades, incidents work period, and the group calmly prepares to return. Anastasia approached Alan with a calm yet steady petition. She required him to accompany her the next time. Though surprised, Alan agreed her invitation without delay. After completing an exploration of an ancient ruin, Alan was once again called by Anastasia, the encounter marking a fresh go in their connection. Arriving early at the front gate of the studies, Alan waited quietly, the atmosphere tense with expectation. A coach appeared before him, its appearance signaling the start of an important journey. Past the window, Anastasia saw him. As the coach door opened, Alan remained prepared, uncertain, but willing to follow her wherever this path led. Anastasia walked down from the coach with confidence. Offering a brief apology for the delay, Alan responded with composure, assuring her that he hadn't waited long. She swiftly shifted the mood and instructed him to board. Trying to care for the driver's seat, Alan was softly corrected and redirected within the coach. As the coach rolled past the busy roads, she showed gratitude for Alan's assistance during their former outing. Seated across from her, Alan heard carefully as Anastasia explained their next destination, a visit to gather insight from experts for an important report. Anastasia explained her plans to consult specialists versed in the labyrinth's history and the recently found ruin. Alan became taken aback by the depth of preparation. She warned him that such thoroughness became expected at her level, even if unknown to commoners. The report they were preparing wasn't trivial. It would be shown before the royal court and noble heirs from multiple nations. Resolved to ensure accuracy, Anastasia emphasized the importance of assembly expert insight for their country's fate diplomacy. Inspired by her will, Alan quietly promised to support her. Motivated by her genuine dedication, they worsened their research by visiting experts, including a scholar specialized in goblins, absorbing every lecture and document available. Despite the report being a group assignment, none of the princes contributed. Anastasia and Alan held the entire workload past sleepless nights. After organizing their notes and holding lengthy discussions, the two finally completed the comprehensive report. However, the report's length drew complaints. A noble demanded a summary, dismissing their effort with a 3-minute limit. Indifferent and pressed for time, he pressed on a simplified account, ignoring the depth and dedication poured into their labor. Alan confessed that reading dense reports on the spot was inconvenient, offering an easy reason to delay deeper betrothal. Anastasia, visibly displeased, warned him they became equals, not subordinates. His dismissive tone didn't go unnoticed. Despite the strain, Alan delivered a simplified version of the report, carefully highlighting its key findings in a way the prince could easily digest. The royal prince gave a brief compliment before walking away, leaving Alan in silent reflection. Though irritated, Anastasia apologized for the prince's attitude, requesting Alan to stay patient in the expression of arrogance. A shadow passed over her look, remote, resigned. It struck Alan like a blow. She looked as though she'd given up entirely. That scene showed more than remarks. She appeared like someone who had agreed her role as a tool in a political game, bound by responsibility. News of the report's quality spread swiftly, earning consent from teachers and officials alike. While praise poured onto the prince, Alan became branded as an idle bystander despite doing most of the labor. Staring out the window, Alan muttered a strategy once winter arrived. He'd termination this charade himself. As summer faded, the crisp wind of autumn settled in. Time moved forward, bringing alter neither could avoid. Posters for the cultural festival appeared. Students buzzed with excitement, chatting about booths and group projects in every corner. Participation was mandatory. While Alan had his own strategy, he also kept an eye on sure citizens, expecting something to go incorrect. Anastasia approached with a proposal to assist her again, but Alan had already submitted his entry. Though surprised, she grinned and wished him well. Her voice was kind, but something behind her gazes stayed remote. No longer obligated to join any group, Alan chose to keep his distance until the scene he required to act arrived. Secret by a concealment spell, he silently looked on the preparations. Amy naturally took charge while others came her lead. As feared, Anastasia remained isolated, ignored as the group favored Amy's suggestions and appearance. Instead of being treated as a partner, she became asked to serve tea, her talents overlooked, her voice rejected. Amy's tone became patronizing. Her grin smug, she assumed Anastasia possessed nothing better to do than serve those who excluded her. While Anastasia stayed behind, the others, including Amy and the prince, strolled off to enjoy tea in the garden. Left solely, she pressed she'd drink the tea herself. Their dismissal didn't go unnoticed, but she endured it in quiet. Amy came back asking about her appearance with a sharp grin. Her tone suggested Anastasia's efforts became meaningless. With a smug look, Amy mocked her composure and cautioned that Carl would grow tired of her cold demeanor. She claimed the country, too, longed for a more graceful ruler, someone charming, agreeable, and nothing like Anastasia. Amy bent closer with a mocking grin, urging Anastasia to grin, pretending worry while ridiculing her dignity. Behind the facade, strain thickened. Amy's remarks stung, and Alan, watching from afar, recognized how the circumstance possessed veered off the original game's path. A reminder of hierarchy became swiftly thrown at Anastasia. Fellow students used social rank to quiet her, rejecting the idea of equality. She countered, pointing out Amy's hypocrisy. Her deeds with Carl weren't innocent either. The confrontation escalated. When insults turned private, Anastasia rose. Alan hurried in, unable to stay silent any longer. Prince Carl burst in, siding with Amy without delay. He scolded Anastasia, asserting she possessed no right to challenge Amy. With finality, he finished the discussion and rejected her. No room for argument. His decision was made, left behind. Anastasia silently gathered papers and materials. No remarks of protest escaped her lips. In the corridor, Amy challenged her with a venomous smirk, mocking her loss, the betrothal, the prince, all now out of reach. As she walked away, Amy's parting remarks struck deep. Serves you right. It wasn't victory, it was cruelty. An unexpected slap resounded in the hallway. Anastasia's expression stung with alarm as Amy walked rear, satisfied with the blow. Before the strain escalated more, Alan appeared with light sarcasm. He cut in, pretending not to notice the hostility. Ignoring the prick, Anastasia turned to Amy. Her voice steady, she warned her rival of the prince's status and the responsibility that arrived with it. She spoke with conviction. Amy's conduct disrespected aristocracy. Alan backed her up, gazes sharp with silent judgment. Left stunned, Amy muttered in disbelief. A minor nobody possessed just undermined her command, and she couldn't understand how. Alan understood the incident's timing had changed. The slap, once a key turning point in the game's collapse, possessed been avoided. Despite his experience, this work period was unknown. Even in extra mode, this wasn't expected. He confirmed Amy was another reincarnator. Her deeds could lead to the city's downfall. He decided to stop her. Amy presented herself with dignity, asserting the title of the realm's chosen heroine. Existence had not constantly been so grand. After a harsh accident left her unconscious, recollections from another realm began flooding rear into her mind. She soon recognized her surroundings, a perfect replica of the romance game she once adored. In her former existence, Amy had been a lonely young woman neglected by classmates and consumed by fantasy. A fatal accident possessed finished that bleak reality. Now, she saw this fresh realm as a gift, a reset. Reincarnated within the game's story, Amy embraced her second chance as the true heroine. Amy and her mom became greeted into the Braze Baron household. The truth of her bloodline emerged. She became the Baron's illegitimate daughter. Overcome with excitement, Amy believed her fate became secured. Lavish gowns, a castle existence, and notice from charming suitors seemed within reach. Resolved to follow the game's romance path, she went into bright studies with bright expectations. News spread swiftly. Commoners possessed ranked at the top of the entry exams. Nobles grew wary and asked for minor investigations. Alan, the second location student, possessed endured hardship and hardship. Meanwhile, Amy, now third, became noted for her healing gift and noble connection. Suspicion grew among the nobles regarding Alan's minor. Despite being a common-born student, he had achieved unusually bright exam scores and attracted notice. The possibility of foreign influence or political manipulation emerged. Rather than act hastily, the ducal kin decided to observe him for now. During the entry ceremony, fresh students began to care for their seats. Formality filled the hall as the studies year officially began. Alan's look raised soft worry. Though unremarkable at first glance, his appearance drew a calculating stare from single of the nobles. Resolved to guard the prince, the young woman grew alert. The seemingly harmless student might not be normal after all. Some students recognized Alan from the common-born student studies. His academic brilliance possessed been known, though few expected to see him here. Amy approached him bravely, requesting to sit beside him. While outwardly friendly, she swiftly judged him too dull to be useful. Romantically amused, she decided to keep him around as a minor helper. In her mind, Alan posed no threat, yet her concentrate soon shifted elsewhere. The royal prince remained beside Amy, though their betrothal became political. Their closeness drew silent resentment from another noble. Fearing ruin, the noble young woman saw warily. If the prince stayed under Amy's influence, the entire realm might be at stake. Anastasia stayed steady in her belief she had a responsibility to guide the prince. If ignored, the consequences would downfall upon the realm's citizens. Meanwhile, Amy demonstrated her healing ability, using a basic blessing to tend to the prince's injuries after an incident. Though slow, the spell functioned. His recovery strengthened his trust in Amy. Much to Anastasia's growing anxiety, encircled by admirers, Amy basked in notice. Suitors commended her beauty and charm, and romance flags bloomed around her effortlessly. To Anastasia, Amy's rise seemed unfair. Born with nothing, yet gaining all the very path required for a ruler, now appeared threatened. A tragic destiny expected the noble young woman, betrayed, dishonored, and left to suffer the consequences of a shattered betrothal. In the attending, the final exam results became showed. Alan took first location, but what shocked many was Anastasia's surprising second location ranking. She thought on her failure, blaming her distraction over the prince and another lady. Alan's silent efforts surpassed her own, accepting reality. She recognized the unchangeable gap between the royal court and commoners. Resolved to move forward, she focused on her studies and summer research. Upon inspection, the group understood the evaluation parchment had disappeared. Alarmed by the implications, they decided to withdraw immediately. Amy's look brightened with understanding, grasping the circumstance aligned with a key element of the game's higher difficulty. Anastasia recognized the challenge calmly. As an experienced player, she agreed the parchment's absence and seemed comforted in having invited Alan along. She looked on Alan's confident leadership. His former struggles forged his wisdom, making him an invaluable guide. Grateful for his continued support, She invited him to accompany her again, recognizing his surprising strength since their first encounter. Amy casually looked on Alan from afar, noting his growing rapport with Anastasia and his diligence in handling reports. Confident in her plans, she envisioned a fate where, after removing the villainess, Alan would become her loyal subordinate. Meanwhile, Anastasia reaffirmed her impression. Alan's brilliance became unmistakable and continued to exceed expectations. Their exchanges became intellectually stimulating. Though once inexperienced, Alan now contributed sharp insights. This progress brought Anastasia genuine delight. Caught smiling, she rejected his worry with a soft reassurance, hiding her raising emotions beneath composed remarks. Alan sat apart, isolated as constantly encircled by nobles. His position as a common-born student made the academy's environment feel suffocating. Anastasia considered how she could reach out. The upcoming cultural festival sparked an idea. Perhaps inviting him would help. However, when she approached, Alan already submitted his own application, leaving her proposal unnecessary. She recognized the outcome without protest, masking her surprise behind composed remarks and soft acceptance. Though a little disappointed, she shifted concentrate to the event itself, choosing instead to look forward to what the festival might bring. Amy challenged another student, concealment her disdain behind etiquette. Despite their equal status as classmates, she warned her of the unspoken social divide. Tensions escalated as Anastasia confronted Amy's behavior. Accusations flew, sparking a heated argument just as Amy neared her goal. In a scene of provocation, Anastasia lost her composure. As she raised her voice, Carl intervened, demanding an account. He rejected Amy's excuses and pressed her to leave. Though Amy masked it with a grin, her strategy had misfired a little. Undeterred, she decided to push forward, eager to finish what she started. Amy challenged Anastasia with a cold grin, mocking her loss with a harsh question about her stolen fiancé. Her remarks dripped with malice. Without remorse, she sneered, asserting that Anastasia deserved the humiliation. Provoking more, she confronted Anastasia to retaliate, promising to repay her anger many times over, eager to escalate the conflict. Just as strain peaked, a loud sneeze interrupted them, cutting past the charged scene unexpectedly. Alan's unexpected look stunned both girls. While Anastasia questioned his timing, Amy's scowl worsened, her plans once again disrupted by the same mob. Stepping aside, Alan's appearance diffused the scene, but Amy's clenched look showed her fury. Victory had slipped from her grasp. A reminder rang out: His Highness wasn't someone to be toyed with, regardless of private ambition or jealousy. Insults blazed in response. Decorum shattered as accusations and titles flew. Yet only Single walked away with dignity intact. Footsteps resounded down the hallway. No retaliation arrived, just silent withdrawal and unspoken thoughts. Solely in her room, regret flickered. A reckless outburst rear then might have caused damage beyond repair. Command this time had prevailed. Moonlight filtered past the window. She remained still, reflecting on the time. A soft thought emerged: someone possessed protected her. Alan prepares for flight during the cultural festival, checking his gear as the aircraft lifts off. Afterward, he carefully secures a large package, noting the perfect temperature for transport. Every detail has been calculated. Freshness must be preserved. Crowds begin pouring into the bustling festival grounds. Among the attractions, a themed cafe draws notice, blending entertainment with student effort. Within, Anastasia stands poised while Margaret informs her that preparations are finished. Anastasia agrees to explore the exhibits. They walk past the grounds, scanning the area. Following directions from the committee, they approach the next place, gazes taking movement forward. At a bustling stall, a student enthusiastically promoted roasted orc meat, drawing notice with its unusual presentation. Margaret, intrigued by the aroma, struggled to hide her appetite. Anastasia looked on her reaction and noted her familiarity with the dish, which was considered a specialty in her homeland. Despite its appeal, many students paused. The concept of eating monster meat unsettled them, even as curiosity lingered in their gazes. Sensing Margaret's interest, Anastasia asked her to accompany her elsewhere, a soft resolve behind her grin. Meanwhile, the vendor questioned if nobles found the display distasteful. He'd left the orc whole to attract notice, but few dared approach. While savoring his own dish, Alan confessed he set up the stall just to enjoy orc meat himself. He planned to deliver leftovers to the association afterward. Unexpectedly, Anastasia arrived with Margaret and asked for a skewer. Alan straightened up in surprise, unprepared for their unexpected interest. As he asked about Margaret, Anastasia presented her proudly. Margaret confirmed her identity, remaining confidently beside her friend. Margaret asked for her own skewer, mentioning her bright standards when it arrived to orc cuisine. Her look was earnest. Examining the meat, she asked its origin. Alan confirmed. It was from Altman, pleasing Margaret, who recognized it as her home city's delicacy. Margaret took her first bite and became shaken by the flavor. The texture became crisp yet tender, experienced only with salt, making every bite unforgettable. Anastasia questioned the source of the premium meat. Margaret admired the quality and affordability, noting how perfectly it possessed been readied. Alan responded vaguely, hinting at a secret method of acquisition. Though he avoided specifics, he confessed to using his adventurer status to make it possible. Margaret confidently evaluated the meat's traits. Its firmness and absence of odor confirmed its freshness and bright grade, watching her enthusiasm. Bystanders grew interested. Her vivid praise and reaction drew more notice than the meat itself. As the enticing aroma spread, students began crowding the stall. Alan obtained rapid-fire orders, trying to keep up as demand soared. With the audience structure, Margaret suggested they leave. Anastasia agreed in agreement, watching Alan get busier by the minute before departing. They shared smiles. Alan thanked them sincerely, while Margaret joked with him about how fun the encounter had been. Alan invited them rear for the orc dismantling show. Margaret declined, but Anastasia, interested, entertained the idea briefly despite the rush. Alan still wondered about Anastasia's group. He planned to visit them once the afternoon slowed down. Thanks to the audience drawn by Anastasia and Margaret, Alan managed to sell out by morning. With the shop closed, he decided to explore the festival. His first stop became the exhibit hosted by Anastasia's group. Interested and with time to spare, he walked within. Surprisingly, the room was empty. There became no receptionist and the displays remained unattended. He skimmed past the exhibition, which depicted a common-born student's diet in the kingdom metropolis, an elaborate spread branded as typical meals. The descriptions painted an idealized sight: children fed well, meals rich with vegetables and meat. Alan quietly questioned its accuracy. Alan studied the remaining displays, noting their polished presentation of education and safety. While well-arranged, something about it seemed disconnected from reality. Nearby, another exhibit caught his notice. This single featuring embroidery intrigued. He stopped to explore it before returning. To his astonishment, Margaret welcomed him kindly at the entry. She invited him within, exposing that this was her group's labor. Within, he found Anastasia dressed in traditional attire. Her unexpected appearance caught him off guard. Anastasia explained her circumstance. After being removed from her original group, Margaret greeted her in to showcase her embroidery. Despite her disappointment, urged Alan to explore the room. She redirected her concentrate toward broader thoughts of the country's fate. Margaret proudly pointed out her piece. Alan, though unknown with embroidery, admired the complexity of her floral patterns. He continued past the display. The delicate stitching on each garment thought aristocracy and caution. All of it beautifully done. She showed another piece, Anastasia's. Its basic charm remained out, depicting a plate with fruit and dessert. Alan chuckled, admitting he got hungry just looking at it. The scene drew smiles all around, caught off guard by the compliment. She lowered her gaze, cheeks flushed with emotion. A soft icy escaped her lips. He swiftly tried to rephrase his remarks, flustered by how odd they had sounded. She agreed, still unsure how to respond. Margaret warned them it became nearly time to head for the auditorium. A sense of closure settled over the group. Before leaving, she grew self-conscious about her chosen artwork. Embarrassed, it showed her sweet tooth. He thanked them and silently took his leave. Within the auditorium, the cultural festival's final results became about to be showed. Anticipation filled the sky. Royal Prince Karl-Heinz and his group shone their award-winning exhibit. Their concentrate became the poor, portrayed past interviews and staged visuals. As they agreed the award, the prince credited the idea to Amy, smiling for the audience while expressing gratitude. Alan stayed still, his gaze fixed on a plate of undisturbed food, planned to depict hardship. It possessed likely been discarded without thought. Disappointment sank in. That speech, shallow and hollow, arrived from the fake king. Something was deeply incorrect. But single crisis stayed. The condemnation of Anastasia loomed. Winter became coming, and Alan possessed to act. Sitting solely, he recalled the original storyline in the game. Anastasia and her followers harassed the heroine, culminating in a violent downfall down the stairs. Things were unfolding too fast. The relationship between Karl and Anastasia possessed already dissolved, diverging from the expected route. Despite the timeline, Anastasia hadn't done anything, yet in the original script, her deeds became scripted as unavoidable. If no harassment occurred, there would be no basis for her exile. That single event was the linchpin. He held on to hope without conflict. The betrothal could simply termination, and Anastasia might finally discover her own happiness. Gossip spread swiftly. Rumors charged Anastasia of stealing Amy's pen and seen it on fire out of jealousy. He froze. Had the event already started? Despite all efforts, Destiny appeared to be following the original script. Confrontation broke out in the hallway. An audience formed as accusations became hurled. Painting Amy as the innocent victim, remaining steady, Anastasia rejected the charges. She demanded proof, asserting neither she nor her friends ever acted maliciously. Despite her defense, murmurs intensified. Alan saw quietly, realizing just how deeply the story was sinking in. Leonardo reached out to stop her, but she pulled away coldly. As a duke's daughter, she warned him of their status gap. Frustration rose. He barked accusations, demanding a guilty plea. She countered sharply, refusing to bow to pressure. Abruptly, Alan walked in. Calmly, he interrupted the scene and pressed all to return to class, diffusing the rising hostility. Before Anastasia could respond, he excused himself. She saw him go, conflicted but grateful. Doubts lingered in Alan's mind. Had Amy orchestrated the incident? If so, the event's path toward condemnation might be unavoidable. Amy smirked, silently delighted. All was following the game's script. Even Leo's reaction fit perfectly despite knowing the status gap. Celebration filled the grand hall. Royal Prince Karl Heinz ready to speak at the promotion and graduation ceremony. He agreed the honor with a grin, praising those who supported him. A polished performance for the audience. Alan saw quietly amid the applause. A classmate called out to him, introducing the young woman at his side. She grinned kindly. Isabella von Leeuwenberg would be joining his class next term. Alan, however, sensed his time here might be limited. The royal prince commended his companions and claimed his achievements became thanks to their support. With a confident tone, he readied to deliver a surprising declaration. In front of the audience, he called Anastasia's name. Alan stiffened as she walked forward, sensing the start of the condemnation. Before the gathered students, Anastasia faced the prince, who announced their betrothal became over. Anastasia stayed composed, calmly. She questioned whether the prince truly understood the responsibilities of aristocracy or the nation's fate. Meanwhile, Amy looked bewildered as another student goaded her to express more outrage. The prince angrily pressed she was misjudged. He then embraced Amy, praising her gentleness and restorative abilities while calling Anastasia rotten. Others joined in, eager to see Anastasia criticized, but Anastasia remained tall, requesting if the prince would stand the consequences. Her response became unexpectedly calm, far from the predicted breakdown. From the stride above, sharp remarks were hurled at Anastasia, mocking her kin's dignity. Observers whispered about her supposed arrogance. Laughs broke out as the prince insulted her heritage, branding her lineage as lowly farmers unfit for aristocracy. Accusations continued from both the prince and Amy. While he pressed, his insults became truthful. Anastasia calmly stated her objection not for herself but for her kin. Amy lashed out, calling her deeds cowardly in response. Anastasia suggested official protest, masking her disappointment with composure. Choosing dignity, she moved aside. Despite protests, she maintained command. The final question confronted her will and hinted at a deeper decision. Anastasia explained calmly that her gloves became not to be used for petty disputes. Her tone stayed steady but composed. Mocking remarks resounded across the hall. The prince ridiculed her kin's honor, asserting even her father failed in raising her. His arrogance stirred murmurs from nearby nobles. Anastasia considered whether a duel became what he truly wanted, quietly weighing her next step. She walked forward with unwavering will, ignoring Amy's jeers. Her quiet held more power than any insult thrown at her. Finally, she cast the glove toward Amy's feet. The hall fell silent as the challenge became unmistakably created. Amy smiled with glee, convinced that Anastasia's loss was sure. She saw the glove downfall and misread the circumstance as a win, rather than retaliating with emotion. Anastasia calmly questioned the insults thrown at her. Unfazed by the provocation, bewilderment spread as a duel was announced. Some students suspected Amy of orchestrating the setup. Strain filled the room. With a confident grin, the prince walked in to fight on Amy's behalf. Declaring it his responsibility to guard her, Anastasia confronted the hypocrisy. Though he claimed to defend Amy, it became obvious who started the duel. Support for Amy rushed, with multiple students volunteering to represent her. Pressure mounted as Anastasia became asked if anyone would fight for her. Laughs broke out when no single walked forward until Alan raised his hand. His obvious voice resounded as he volunteered to stand by her side. Descending the stairs in disbelief, she hurried to confront him. The idea of Alan challenging the royal court left her shaken. Desperation broke past her composure. She pleaded for him to reconsider, believing he shouldn't involve himself in such perilous matters. With confidence, Alan pressed her to accept. Shaken, she paused, then began to speak. Before she could rear her remarks, someone yelled that she had agreed. Regret flickered across her expression as Alan confirmed it. Surprised, the prince failed to recognize him. Alan calmly warned him they became classmates who possessed once 8 conversations pressed for terms. Alan asked for an official apology and retraction of insults aimed at the Ramslet-kin. She supported the demand. Those who sided with Amy rejected Alan entirely. Each announced they wanted nothing to do with him or Anastasia. 5 opponents remained prepared. With no allies yet, Alan now faced the burden of finding 4 others or winning solely. Laughs broke out as Alan rejected the challenge's rules. Rather than finding allies, he asked to expression all 5 opponents at once. A bold smirk accompanied his challenge, suggesting that maybe the prince feared him. That jab swiftly wiped the grin from the prince's expression. A single of the nobles barked a threat. Another scoffed at Alan's absence of skills in combat and sorcery. Criticism rained from every side. Each opponent became called out single for threats, another for relying on status, and a third for academic failure. Despite Anastasia's plea, Alan held his ground. No intention to escape, he remained prepared, even if the odds were 5-0. Wetness welled in her gazes. Bewilderment took hold as she questioned why Alan would make things worse by provoking his enemies more. From afar, Amy saw with disbelief. None of this fit the game's original path. This became an unpredictable anomaly. Visions of a doomed former flashed past her mind. In that realm, a powerless common-born student died protecting a noble he cherished. Yet Alan didn't flinch. He demanded a decision from the prince: accept the unfair terms, or rear down. Reluctantly, the challenge was agreed. With strain rising, Anastasia pressed on single condition. No single would perish in this duel, no matter the outcome. With a grin, Alan thanked her for the reminder. Some scoffed at the condition, but others reluctantly agreed, deeming it less messy. The prince called for a witness to oversee the duel from the audience. A volunteer raised his hand, prepared to care for the role. A tall boy walked forward, familiar to Alan. Though his aims became unclear, he formally offered to witness the duel. Time was set. With only 30 minutes to prepare, Alan agreed without protest, suspecting bias in every move. As the challengers stormed off, Alan stayed calm. Even as others called after him, he silently comforted himself. It became still worth it. Alan's calm grin baffled all. While Anastasia and her friends pressed him to reconsider, he simply responded with a soft good. Concerned voices cautioned of the risks. They suspected the rules might be ignored if he became harmed. Yet Alan stayed composed. Wetness welled in Anastasia's gazes as she begged him to withdraw. She couldn't stand to see someone with potential downfall for her sake. He deflected the worry with a grin. Rumors of a youthful adventurer reached the group, and Alan showed the truth. Was that adventurer the goblin and orc slayer, survivor of countless battles far from normal? Confidence shone on Alan's expression. He comforted them with a calm farewell, asserting victory was already sure. Her breath caught as he walked away. Doubt, awe, and fright stirred behind her broadly gazes. From the darkness, a young woman saw. Bewilderment filled her thoughts. This scene wasn't part of the game she knew. Still, she clung to belief. Carl's victory was assured. Alan, in her gazes, stayed a fool chasing affection. Regardless of outcome, she concluded single thing: Anastasia would suffer, either past loss or by watching her protector downfall. Amy saw with twisted delight, convinced the story would help her. As the heroine, she believed destiny itself became on her side. Gasps resounded when Alan walked into sight, equipped with only a dagger. His entry shocked the audience. Even as worried voices questioned his choice, he approached the arena confidently and addressed the prince without fright. Kneeling, he promised to win not for dignity, but for Anastasia. His sincerity left her speechless. The duel was officially announced. With rising strain, weapons were drawn. The realm ready to watch a common-born student defy expectations. As the duel began, Amy's ally charged recklessly. Alan, remaining calm and unarmed, slowly reached for his dagger with a soft grin. In a flash, a massive explosion engulfed the field. Spectators gasped, stunned by the unexpected, crushing power. A dense smokescreen bursts across the battlefield as 3 students brace themselves, weapons drawn. They expression the cloud, uncertain of what lies beyond it. Commotion erupts among the spectators. Bewilderment spreads as they realize it's a smokescreen. Students squint past the clearing smoke. Visibility slowly returns. 2 figures lie unconscious on the ground, and more silhouettes emerge. As the smoke fades, a lone boy stands encircled by fallen elites. Watchers recognize the dropped figures: the royal court and nobles, triggering panic. Even Royal Prince Karl-Heinz and Marcus are down. Survivors cough and stagger. The atmosphere shifts. Something irreversible has just occurred. Alan reveals the unconscious figures on the ground, forcing all to witness the results of the clash. Pressuring a noble, he demands acknowledgement of his victory, holding a blade to a fallen student as others look on in alarm. Among the audience, Anastasia calls out to Alan, her look mixed with disbelief and awe at his swift intervention. Before the battle began, Alan had awakened a smokescreen and disappeared using a stealth technique. Taking his opponents off guard, blinded by smoke, the enemy fumbled in bewilderment. Unable to locate Alan, a strain rose with each second lost. Alan challenged the brawny opponent directly, calmly aiming the gun he'd previously used to stop thieves. Loaded with non-lethal rounds, the weapon wouldn't kill, but the impact became strong enough to cause serious damage. Sweat dripped from his expression as he awakened a second smokescreen, pain flaring across his form from the strain. Caught off guard, Marcus the mage became enveloped in smoke, his panic growing with every uncertain second. While the mage paused, Alan moved swiftly past the haze, preparing for his next objective. Leonardo, desperate to regain visibility, the swordsman called for wind to disperse the smoke. Relief crossed his expression as the sky began to obvious. Meanwhile, Oscar, the elite archer, drew his bow amidst the coughing, hoping to land a clean shot despite the haze. However, even his ability couldn't overcome the obscured vision. His aim faltered and frustration overtook him. Royal Prince Karl-Heinz, a powerful offensive mage, scoured the battlefield, furious and accusing others while searching for Alan. The prince swung his sword recklessly past the smoke, forcing Alan to hold rear, alert of harming nearby students. News spread across the field. Leonardo, Claude, and Oscar possessed all been defeated. Spectators remained stunned at the scene. Gasps resounded past the audience. Single young woman, shaken, could only repeat her disbelief as strain gripped the watchers. Alan remained quietly among the commotion. Names of fabled talents resounded in contrast, yet none possessed managed to stop him. Wetness filled her gazes as she cried out. Her realm, once predictable, now teetered on the edge of collapse. Conflicted, Anastasia called Alan's name. Her voice trembled with awe and fright, asking about what he truly was beneath the surface. Alan stayed steady before the audience, explaining how Oscar had yielded and how the others were already down. Only two opponents stayed, Marcus and the royal prince, both central figures in the country's fate, lay unconscious. In the game's realm, their political roles became irreplaceable. Faced with loss, Marcus resorted to veiled threats. He cautioned Alan of the consequences, trying to invoke his kin's influence. Alan questioned his motives calmly, pointing out how he constantly used status when cornered. His remarks struck deeper than any blow. With unwavering will, he warned Marcus of the truth behind the duel and confronted him to recognize the true injustice. Marcus tried to justify his deeds, asserting it was to guard Amy, but Alan swiftly exposed the baseless accusation. Amy, watching from the sidelines, grew desperate. Her calls for Marcus to retaliate showed her panic as the truth emerged. Alan responded strongly, demanding an apology for the harm done to Anastasia. His remarks criticized Marcus's short-sightedness and dignity. Abruptly, Alan delivered a decisive blow. Marcus staggered backward, the slap echoing louder than any sorcery could have. Lying on the ground, Marcus became announced defeated. Alan remained tall, and the broken glasses symbolized the termination of the confrontation. Alarm spread across the audience as students whispered the common-born student had already defeated 4 noble elites in succession. Alan shifted concentrate to the final opponent. Royal Prince Karl-Heinz, though still remaining, was visibly shaken and reduced. The prince, sweating and furious, charged Alan of using cowardly tactics and demanded a fair fight without tools. Unfazed, Alan responded with composure. He warned the prince that it became he who forced Anastasia into this public duel. Karl-Heinz tried to justify his deeds, but Alan pressed on, exposing the baseless world of the accusations against Anastasia. Alan raised his voice before the audience, declaring the accusations against Anastasia to be entirely unfounded and baseless. He explained how Anastasia only filed a fair complaint, exposing that she had done nothing deserving of blame. Prince Karl-Heinz attempted to deflect responsibility, muttering a weak protest while others began to question the truth behind Amy's role. Frustration burst forth from the prince. He yelled at Alan, blaming his kingdom burden and societal expectations for his deeds. His voice turned possessive and bitter. He confessed that Amy created him feel seen, his emotions twisting into obsession and delusion. Alan recognized that even the royal prince been manipulated. Amy, with knowledge of the game's structure, approached him strategically. He turned to Anastasia, praising her for her loyalty and strength. Despite the betrothal, she had functioned tirelessly for the realm. But the prince neglected her, choosing to chase other women. Alan's accusations struck hard as the prince tried to shut him down. Defensive and emotional, the prince lashed out. He claimed the royal court arrived with burdens, unlike the freedom commoners enjoyed. Amy retaliated, mocking Alan's ideals. She pressed if common-born student existence was so noble, They should both run away and live it. Alan stated the harsh reality of his upbringing: dirty ditches, hard work, stale food, and survival on mere scraps. He walked forward with conviction, shouting for the prince to stop acting entitled and expressing the truth of others' suffering. Encircled by fallen nobles, Alan remained solely in the arena as the audience quietly saw the confrontation happen. With steady will, he warned the prince of his responsibility. As Fate King, he should have acted for the citizens, not himself. The prince lowered his head, shaken, realizing he neglected both his position and Anastasia's devotion. Alan remained in quiet as the atmosphere shifted. Anastasia approached, but neither spoke of what arrived next. He announced the duel over, his look calm. She looked at him with worry as he moved aside. From behind, the prince began casting forbidden sorcery. Anastasia recognized the spell unstable and far too perilous. Fueled by desperation, the prince unleashed the attack. Alan stayed not aware as the luminous orb rushed toward him. With will in his gazes, Alan called a swirling mass of power, channeling every ounce of strength he had. Not far away, a young woman looked on the commotion unfolding. Doubt filled her mind. Her ice sorcery solely might not be fast or strong enough to contain the threat. Abruptly, she cried out Alan's name. Fright marked across her expression as his silhouette began to vanish behind the crushing surge of power. His opponent didn't flinch. With swift precision, a counterattack became unleashed, colliding fiercely with Alan's sorcery and hurling him backward. Citizens scrambled for cover, and Alan's motionless form fell to the ground, battered and still. Alan exhaled, finally letting his guard down as the strain faded. A voice called out, snapping him rear to the scene as notice shifted to him. Across the field, the defeated opponent struggled to remain conscious. Blood seeped past his shirt while a young woman desperately tried to support him, panic rising among the witnesses. The announcer walked forward, declaring the outcome without delay. With Karl-Heinz incapacitated, Alan became officially recognized as the winner of the duel. Cheers broke out from the audience. Students celebrated Alan's triumph, and astonished voices commended his surprising victory. Among the spectators, a young woman dropped to her knees. Her look wavered, shocked, uncertain, and shaken by the go of incidents. Bewilderment clouded her look as reality settled in. She struggled to grasp how all had unraveled so swiftly before her gazes. Kneeling in quiet, she questioned her decisions. Despite believing she became the rightful protagonist, doubt crept into her heart. Meanwhile, Alan knelt before Anastasia, humbly offering his victory in her name. Encircled by stunned watchers, her response became soft, mixed with surprise and appreciation. Though touched by his gesture, her mind wandered to deeper concerns. Even with commotion averted, Anastasia stayed grounded. She focused not on triumph but on the fate of the country and those who depended on her. Alan bowed respectfully before Anastasia and the others, offering heartfelt thanks for their support and guidance. Surprised by his unexpected farewell, Anastasia and her companions called out, unable to hide their worry as he turned to leave. A nearby official walked in, requesting confirmation to formally close the duel proceedings. The outcome was obvious, but protocol still required to be came. Weighed down by guilt, she recognized her responsibility. Knowing she started the duel and could not walk away from the aftermath. As she saw Alan from a distance, a mix of regret and soft will stirred within her. Anastasia dashed past the hallways, her breath growing heavier with every step. Haste pushed her forward, pushing her to discover answers. Recollections of Alan's remarks resounded in her mind. Bewilderment and frustration bubbled up. She couldn't understand why he spoken as if it became a farewell. Upon entering his room, she froze. The space became empty, beds neatly arranged, chairs undisturbed. Turning to the nearby clerk, she demanded to know Alan's whereabouts. Her voice wavered between anxiety and disbelief. The maid responded softly, the room been vacant for some time. Alan already readied his departure long before the duel had finished. Anastasia remained frozen in location, as she caught a final glimpse of Alan among the audience. His figure drifted farther away, silent and resolved. Meanwhile, Alan came back to his small house, weighed down by recollections and bags. That night, they sat together at the desk. Alan confessed all the unfairness, the danger, and his decision to stand up for someone in need. His mom heard silently, her look calm. She hadn't expected this path, but agreed it without blame. With a soft grin, she commended his courage, though his fate was uncertain. She saw how much her child had matured past it all. Worry clouded his thoughts. What had started as a studies duel now involved nobles and the royal court, a circumstance spiraling beyond a mere expulsion. A soft voice broke the strain. She pressed he run if danger arrived, prioritizing his existence over honor. Her worry cut past his guilt. Night settled in. The house grew soft as he climbed to the loft, her remarks still fresh in his mind. Sleep didn't come easily. Doubts crept in. Could he guard her? Could he fix what possessed already gone so incorrect? Gazes stared into the darkness above. He didn't want to lose what he possessed fought for. If problems arrived, he had to be prepared. Creaking stride resounded in the loft as his mom slowly climbed up. Both sat silently under the moonlight. From the window, castle towers gleamed in the distance, visible like a lingering reminder of what possessed happened. Recollections emerged. She softly remarked how long it had been since they ate a scene like this, warmth returning to her voice as she commended the strength she saw in him. He confessed his regrets, admitting that he may have pulled others into consequences required only for him. Assisting someone in need just like his father possessed once done showed he had inherited more than just his name. Moonlight spilled past the window as sleep crept in. His thoughts lingered on the father he never knew, wondering what kind of boy he possessed been. A strong declaration broke the quiet. If anyone arrived for her child, king or noble, she'd fight them all. No fright in her remarks, just pure will. Wetness welled up as guilt emerged. Yet her reply arrived without delay. He possessed done his best. No shame in his deeds, with a sigh. She announced she'd sleep beside him, shifting a little. He protested, bewildered, flustered, but secretly comforted. Morning came. At the wash basin, he muttered a reminder that she possessed her own room. Fresh sky filled his lungs as he finished drying off. A good night's rest possessed cleared the turmoil of doubt that had clouded his thoughts. From the window, things didn't seem so dark. His intervention had halted Anastasia's banishment, prevented internal conflict, and stalled an invasion from abroad. Heading downstairs, he became welcomed with warmth and a familiar voice. Strain lingered, but so did a soft sense of calm. Morning meal brought a sense of normalcy. He didn't know how long peace would last, but for now, being house seemed true. Knocking broke the calm. Curiosity turned into caution. Only single time had passed, but problems, it appeared, never waited long. Empty hallway welcomed him after the knock. No single appeared to be there, but something didn't sit right. Without notice, a power tackled him from behind. Breath stolen, balance lost, arms wrapped tight around his head. The visitor turned out to be Monica, bright and completely unbothered. Her lively appearance filled the room like a morning turmoil. She dropped by from the market with fresh vegetables and familiar smiles. More friends became waiting downstairs, and old recollections stirred as he came. Beyond, familiar faces welcomed him kindly. Time hadn't dulled their bonds. Not all returns possessed to be filled with conflict. Light-hearted teasing broke out among the old friends. They wrapped arms around his shoulders, tossing out wild guesses about why he came back, none close to the truth. Familiar faces faded rear into city existence, not aware of the weight he'd been holding. At the doorway, she asked the question he expected. No, he hadn't told them anything. Better that way, at least for now. Explaining more would drag others into danger. Some stories became better left unspoken until the time became right. Abruptly, a coach rolled in, elegant, out of location, and far too early for any visit. Suspicion crept in again. Peace never appeared to last long. A coach arrived without any official markings. He scanned for guards but saw none, calming his strain a little. At the door, a well-dressed boy confirmed his identity. His mom remained silently beside him. The visitor presented himself as a butler from House Ramslet. Alan became stunned. Anastasia's kin possessed called him directly. Alan remained in alarm as a coach from the noble Ramslet kin arrived, summoning him by name. The messenger, serving the Duke, assured Alan's mom that her child was in no danger and commended him as a benefactor to the youthful lady of the house. Despite his mom's delay, Alan calmly comforted her and went to alter clothing as the nobleman waited beyond. Aunts prepared, Alan departed in the coach, its wheels echoing down the stone-paved road. Within, Alan sat opposite the nobleman, soft and composed as their journey toward the Duke's residence began. Alan gazed out the coach window, astonished by the elegance of the aristocratic district surrounding him. The coach slowed as they arrived at the grand residence of the Duke of Ramslet, protected by towering gates and decorated architecture. Within, he became led to a lavish reception room where a maid served him tea while he waited as instructed. Seated solely, Alan looked on the refined surroundings, realizing the immense influence and status the Ramslet kin held. With shaking hands, he steadied his breath and pressed himself to stay composed for the meeting forward. Within the waiting room, Alan thought on the crucial meeting forward and pondered how much support he could gain from the Ramslet kin. The door opened, and a large boy with commanding appearance went into, prompting Alan to straighten up. With a calm look, the boy welcomed him and confirmed his identity, establishing familiarity. Alan respectfully presented himself and agreed the proposal to sit as the nobleman gestured toward the seat. Introducing himself as Gerhard, the head of the Ramslet dukedom, the boy showed regret for the unexpected summons, Gerhard bent rear as he recognized Alan's role in aiding his daughter the time before. He offered sincere thanks, recognizing Alan's bold duel with the royal court on behalf of his daughter. With a thoughtful pause, the Duke asked to ask questions, prompting Alan's surprise and polite agreement. Showed he possessed investigated Alan's miner and adventurer famed for conquering the Goblin Labyrinth and known by a fearsome title. Listing Alan's achievements, he questioned the youthful boy's reason for fighting such a risky duel. Suspecting romantic interest in his daughter readied for consequences, Alan explained his deeds, expressing deep respect for Anastasia's perseverance. Acknowledging the gap in social remaining, he still spoke strongly, aware of his own limitations. Gerhard questioned his decision, alerting him of the effort it took to reach his current position. Rather than speak of ambition, Alan announced his desire to guard those who supported and raised him. Surprised, Gerhard sipped his tea and called the duel absurd, yet confessed he heard every detail. Though Alan recognized that a duel was still a duel, he pressed that Anastasia would never harm the prince herself. He explained that her loss became inevitable due to her world, and the opposing party demanded she stay away from His Highness and others. Gerhard, while sipping tea, agreed with the logic, stating she would have been expelled for something she didn't do. If such treatment could befall a duke's daughter, Alan cautioned, then no noble became safe from unfair removal. With strain rising, he predicted commotion and bloodshed unless these deeds were addressed. Gerhard raised his hand, acknowledging the warning while trying to slow the conversation. Gerhard bent forward, asking about how the kingdom's succession crisis could possibly relate to protecting Single's kin. Without delay, Alan responded, voicing his worry for the fate of the Estonian realm as a whole. The duke's gazes narrowed, silently acknowledging how far the youthful boy had thought things past. Alan confessed his grasping arrived only from reading newspapers. After a brief pause, Gerhard offered to care for responsibility for Alan's circumstance and ensure the safety of his mom remaining tall. He announced that Alan now had the Ramslet kin's full support. Any fate problems could be brought directly to them. Gerhard called for Sebas to escort Alan rear house comfortably, prompting a grateful bow from the boy. With polite formality, Alan excused himself. Gerhard quietly saw his departure, his look unreadable. Remaining solely, the Duke thought on Alan's strength, a common-born student who had overcome nobles blessed with divine protection. Soft admiration replaced his earlier skepticism, from petty studies disputes to matters of national security. Alan's thinking matured. Gerhard recognized the depth of insight Anna possessed spoken of. That same night, frantic cries resounded past the estate. A youthful lady's voice pleaded urgently for her father to listen, marking the start of another turning point. Caught off guard by Anna's unexpected return, questioned her surprising look as servants attended to him. Breathless and resolved, she pressed she had something important to tell him, haste marked across her expression. In another room, voices discussed His Highness's apparent decline. Expressing disbelief at how far things deteriorated, Gerhard turned serious, reflecting on the duel. He confessed that Alan had faced the study's most formidable opponents solely something nearly impossible to believe. Anna began to explain, introducing Alan as a classmate from small origins. Despite his minor, he possessed enrolled past merit and a scholarship. He heard quietly as Anna commended Alan's many feats. From defeating perilous monsters to mastering powerful sorcery, the boy's abilities remained out far beyond expectation. Her flustered look didn't escape notice. A teasing question came, requesting if she'd fallen in love. Embarrassment took over as her brother chimed in with a smirk. Despite the momentary teasing, Gerhard turned serious again, maintaining her betrothal to His Highness, he said, would now be nearly impossible. Anna recognized the truth silently. The path forward would be difficult. Turning to Sebas, Gerhard asked more about the scholarship student. He learned Alan became raised solely by his mom in the metropolis. Recognition settled in. If those remarks became true, then Alan wasn't just gifted, he became a rare genius. The country couldn't afford to lose. With a short sigh, Gerhard recognized her concerns. Time was delayed, more discussion could wait. Before leaving, Anna stopped. Delay gave way to sincerity as she softly asked her father to consider Alan's location. Staring past the tall windows, frustration rose. Her circumstance with His Highness becoming too tangled to ignore. Just as he turned, her voice arrived again. Steady stride into the room affirmed her remarks. That boy, she pressed, truly fit every expectation she'd stated. A reckless response to provocation pulled Alan into a conflict that risked escalating far beyond study's walls. Regret lingered in the room as her mom confessed her shame about the entire circumstance with His Highness. Soft arms wrapped around Anna, no remarks were required. Across the room, Gerhard's voice broke the quiet. He would visit the kingdom palace himself. As Duke, he promised to shield Alan. Wetness fell as Anna gave a faint nod, acknowledging that his decision became what she possessed expected for all along. Beyond the mansion, stillness came back, grasping had been reached, and a fresh path was start to care for shape. A soft coach expected beyond the estate gates. Alan became told Anastasia wouldn't be meeting anyone that time. Thoughts clouded his mind as the coach pulled away. No goodbyes, no answers. Regret came closely behind, whispering that maybe she resented him now. Despite surviving the ordeal, satisfaction never arrived. Destiny had shifted, but the road forward stayed long and uncertain. Days afterward, a voice called from downstairs. Someone had come to visit, and his mom called him down with a kind grin. At the door remained the same boy who once brought existence-changing news. Familiar remarks welcomed him. It possessed been a while. Official invitation arrived, requesting Alan to attend meal the next time. Alarm struck him upon hearing Anastasia would be attending. Beyond the grand estate, Alan adjusts his uniform while his mom hesitates nearby, visibly uneasy about her small attire. The difference in status weighs on her. Aunts within, Alan calmly reassures her. Thanks to the host's thoughtful gesture, official clothes isn't required. Calming some of her discomfort, he quietly acknowledges her worry. After all, it's rare for normal citizens like them to be invited to dine with aristocracy. The Duke greets them with a welcoming grin. Alan introduces his mom, who politely thanks him for the honor of their appearance. Grateful in return, the Duke expresses appreciation for Alan's support of his daughter. His respectful tone puts Katerina softly at ease. The Duke introduces his wife, Elizabeth, and their child, Friedrich. Both propose polite greetings, presenting themselves with warmth and poise. Elizabeth smiles gracefully as she acknowledges Alan's appearance. Alan bows respectfully, introducing himself while expressing gratitude for the invitation. A calm voice interrupts the exchange. Anastasia enters the room with soft elegance, drawing Alan's notice immediately as he mutters her name in surprise. Without notice, she commands Alan to follow. The surprising order stuns the surrounding guests as Alan is pulled away. Down the hall, Anastasia corners Alan, gripping his collar tightly. Her look remains unreadable as quiet hangs between them. Anastasia lashes out at Alan, her voice sharp as she confronts him over his unexpected disappearance, demanding an account. Caught off guard, Alan stammers an apology, unsure whether her anger stems from worry or resentment. The strain softens a little. Anastasia silently thanks him for defending her in the duel, while Alan expresses happiness at seeing her again. Their embarrassing reunion draws notice. Laughs erupts nearby, and someone comments on how close the two seem. Awkward them both not long after. They return together. Anastasia apologizes for the delay, regaining her composure before the gathered nobles. Elizabeth cheerfully shares how worried Anastasia possessed been, even exposing she cried delayed at night over Alan's disappearance. Anastasia swiftly denies it, visibly flustered. Alan freezes as Elizabeth presses him for a reaction. Her teasing tone catches him off guard, leaving him unsure how to respond. Trying to recover, Alan asks if he may call her Anna. Embarrassed, Anastasia allows it, but only when others aren't around. Moments afterward, she briskly changes the subject and leads the group toward the dining hall, with Sabas following. Deciding to express his emotions more openly, instead of concealment behind a reserved facade, all gathers around the meal desk as the Duke addresses Alan, requesting a full account of the recent incident. Calmly, he explains the outcome of the duel. An official apology will be made at the school's opening ceremony, where many witnesses can listen to it. While sipping his drink, the Duke announces the betrothal between the royal prince and his daughter is now formally annulled. A soft petition follows. Continue supporting Anastasia, not just as an ally but as a trusted companion. Smiling softly, the Duke assures there will be no punishment or expulsion awaiting Alan at studies. A generous proposal is created. Alan may join their household after graduation or be presented to valuable connections. The Duke urges him to enjoy studies' existence first. Wetness well up in Katerina's gazes. She expresses sincere gratitude for the gentleness shown to her child. Comforted, she's softly urged by those around her. Grateful beyond remarks for the surprising warmth, Anastasia smiles softly, promising to rely on Alan again in the coming year. He responds with soft enthusiasm as meal begins. Laughs and conversation fill the room. A once official assembly now feels like a celebration. A soft scene at the desk brings Alan peace. He reflects with dignity on his efforts, finally feeling that all became worth it. At the coach, gratitude is shared. The Duke assures Alan and his mom they are welcome anytime, parting with warmth. Before they can leave, Anastasia pulls Alan aside, requesting for a private term. Elizabeth offers to guide Katerina past the garden in the meantime. With confidence, Anastasia requests Alan's help exploring the newly found Altman labyrinth. Margaret will accompany her as well. Hearing the name shocks him, Recollections resurface and his look stiffens. Something perilous may be secret forward. Anastasia questions the labyrinth's depth, still officially unknown. Alan hesitates, wondering if he should admit his former exploration before it was openly found. Surprised by her reaction, he confesses he found it long ago during his travels past the jungle. She covers her expression, realizing he never reported it. Alan downplays the discovery, saying there became no snares and only a minor boss at the termination. Interested and bewildered, Anastasia asks about fast laps. Alan explains it's a method to train efficiently, based on repeated runs. He breaks it down, completing the labyrinth, returning, then repeating the procedure to increase strength. Anastasia pauses middle of remark, flustered by Alan's calm appearance. He notices and softly asks what's incorrect, but she brushes it off. Their conversation shifts to scheming. Alan agrees to guide them past the labyrinth, and they decide to organize it after the fresh year. Upon arriving at Altman, Margaret greets them. She shares that other explorers may have already started exploring, but there is still a chance for them. Margaret praises Alan's strength, and even suggests scouting him. Her confidence leaves him surprised. Playfully, she reassures Anastasia that she wouldn't dream of taking her precious knight. Flustered, Anastasia denies the implication. Alan casually admits he already collected the treasure from the Orc Labyrinth. Though apologetic, he jokes about giving it all away, drawing a reaction. A group of adult explorers questions his qualifications. They're surprised to learn Margaret chose a student as their guide. Skepticism continues until Single mentions Alan's former feats conquering the Goblin Labyrinth and earning the title of Orc Slayer. Alan proposes an ability test to determine roles. Confidently, the fighters assure they'll guard Margaret, causing Alan to question their capability. Together, the party enters the labyrinth. Alan instructs them to engage the orcs directly. Prepared to assist if required, distrust hangs in the sky. Alan senses the group's delay, realizing danger will follow if they refuse his commands middle of battle. A beast appears almost immediately. Single of the knights volunteers to lead the attack, but Alan stops him just in time. Without waiting, Alan strides forward himself. The others protest. Unsure of what he's scheming to do, challenging the enemy directly, Alan prepares to demonstrate his strength, resolved to make their trust past intervention. With a modern firearm in hand, he surprises all as the creature charges. Alan readies his weapon, calm and focused. An enraged beast charges forward, baring its fangs and shaking the tunnel with its roar. Despite warnings, Alan kneels and raises his weapon, ignoring the shouting behind him. His concentrate remains locked on the approaching objective. In a flash, he opens fire. The gunfire echoes past the corridor, and the beast collapses middle of charge. Stunned quiet follows, lowering his weapon. Alan exhales calmly. Shocked expressions surround him, questions pouring in about what they just witnessed. He explains the weapon is a mystic tool powered by wind sorcery, designed to fire iron bullets. Respect begins to replace doubt. Alan calmly signals for the group to proceed. The others, now cooperative, nod with respect and slight nervousness. Praise for his technique spreads. Single Knight admits relief that Alan is an ally, while Alan proposes they labor together to guard both Margaret and Anastasia. As another monster approaches, Single Knight strides forward, eager to prove himself this time. With swift movements, Anastasia intervenes instead. Her precise strikes knock the beast rear, stunning both the enemy and her allies. Finishing the attack with grace, she teases Alan. He smiles in admiration, acknowledging her superior swordsmanship born from training and divine blessing. Leadership shifts into motion as positions are assigned. Alan takes point, Anastasia follows close behind. While knights handle threats from the rear, victory comes swiftly. Orc bodies lie defeated, including their king, priest, and mage. Disbelief spreads, some wonder if knighthood still suits them. A gesture points all toward the next room. Movement resumes as Alan suggests they prepare to exit. Margaret chuckles, admitting their over-reliance on single person. Appreciation fills her voice despite the imbalance. Discussion shifts to treasures. Disappointment follows, but praise for the fast lap strategy remains. Anastasia strides forward, resolved to match Alan's speed. She declares her intent to fight alongside him, refusing to be left behind or overshadowed. They continue running laps past the labyrinth together. This time, she takes the lead while Alan follows. Both steadily growing stronger, Alan remained on stage as a bold declaration resounded past the hall. The name of the Duke of Ramslet held weight, and all gazes turned to Alan. Earlier that time, Alan left house for studies after winter break. He created a decision single that would alter the course of destiny. As he walked past the city, Alan thought on his deeds. He succeeded in preventing Anna's condemnation, breaking the game's script. Though he once knew the fate, its certainty became gone. Now, He required to think clearly to prevent ruin. But with the script shattered, fresh dangers loomed, and Alan questioned what expected next. The Ramslet Duchy, known as the realm's primary source of grain, once remained as a crucial pillar supporting the royal prince's authority. Political balance crumbled after the duel, pushing southern nobles to potentially rally behind the duke. Alan questioned his choice. Though he prevented single ruin, the nation's turmoil copied the commotion of the original game's script. Suspicion now turned toward Amy. Her persistent ambition and cunning hinted at a fresh scheme, single possibly targeting Anna. Resolved to guard those he cared about, Alan walked forward. No matter how twisted the fate became, he promised to secure a happy ending. Alan shared polite greetings with Isabella and Margaret, who were bright to discover they ate a class with him and Anna this semester. Their gentleness was kindly obtained. With smiles all around, they pledged to support each other as classmates going forward. Knowing Anna would benefit from positive companionship, Alan seemed comforted. Encircled by friends, her studies' existence would likely improve. However, murmurs of contempt emerged nearby. Some students criticized Alan for his former deeds, calling his duel dishonorable. What surprised Alan most wasn't their reaction, but the class placements. Despite poor grades, the royal prince stayed in class a while. Others were silently demoted. Alan noticed Claude's absence from the class list, though no official cause became given. It appeared Claude, possessed, silently dropped out. Not long after, Anastasia appeared and caught Alan off guard with her unexpected appearance. She warned him strongly not to address her casually in public. As they walked, she spoke about her brother being away for labor. Alan paused when asked if Claude became still enrolled. Anastasia clarified the circumstance. Claude's withdrawal was at the petition of the realm of Westerdale, raising more questions. Leonardo's circumstance was worse. He possessed been disowned by his kin, possibly due to the consequences of the duel. The Ramslet kin had lodged an official protest against the Duke's kin. Leonardo's refusal to admit fault left his kin unable to shield him any longer. Anastasia thought on the string of difficult incidents. Though troubling for her personally, the outcome brought stability and benefit to the realm. Redirecting the scene, she invited Alan to the auditorium. He recognized the time's importance. It was time for the opening ceremony. Official apology from the royal prince and his allies was about to be delivered in front of all as Anna had asked for. When names became called, Anastasia walked forward confidently. Alan, unexpectedly called, came her toward the podium. Unsure of what expected him next, Anastasia turned to Alan and warned him of his role. Having fought for her, he possessed earned the right to stand behind her during the apology. As names were called, single of the royal prince's companions walked forward to the stage, his look stiff under the gazes of the audience. Remaining steady, Anastasia demanded an answer. Would they finally acknowledge the outcome of the duel? Strain thickened as Alan looked on their discomfort. The group appeared bitter, but they couldn't deny the result. Some muttered silently, blaming only themselves. In the termination, they bowed. Regretfully, they offered an official apology to the Duke of Ramslet, their dignity wounded but remarks spoken aloud. With her voice shaking, the young woman offered a direct apology. Before the silent audience, she bowed, finally acknowledging her error. Anastasia agreed the remarks but issued a stern warning. She created it obvious. Belittling the Ramslet kin would no longer go unchallenged. As they came back to their seats, strain lingered. Murmurs came. Carl and his group, their expressions stiff as they walked former watching gazes. Some questioned the apology's sincerity. Alan looked on silently, noting the discomfort marked into their faces. Just as he readied to leave, Anastasia halted him with a grin. Something else still stayed. Alan remained on stage, bewildered by Anastasia's unexpected call. Murmurs spread past the audience as she addressed him formally. With a strong voice, Anastasia proclaimed Alan possessed upheld the honor of House Ramslet. His role in defending her reputation possessed not gone unnoticed. As recognition for his loyalty and courage, the Duke of Ramslet would extend his family's protection to Alan and his kin. Murmurs rippled past the audience. The declaration shocked many. How could a common-born student receive such privilege? At last, Anastasia shone the kin crest. Alan became asked would he accept the honor. Alan agreed, the handkerchief with a mix of bewilderment and sincerity. Unsure if it held deeper noble importance, he pledged himself to the gesture. Applause broke out from the audience. Margaret and Isabella clapped enthusiastically, their consent surprising yet comforting to Alan. Together, he and Anastasia exited the hall. The echo of clapping came them past the grand corridors of the school. Interested, Alan asked why she created such a public declaration, especially when the king became already aware of the arrangement. Anastasia explained her reasoning. It became a warning. Any harm toward Alan would now be treated as a threat to the Ramslet kin itself. Still holding the handkerchief, turned to Anastasia with uncertainty. He silently asked what the gesture truly required. Before she could reply, classmates gathered around praising Anastasia's deeds. Alan, meanwhile, became pulled into conversation by interested voices. Isabella and Margaret approached with bright smiles. They joked with Alan, requesting to see the handkerchief he obtained. The two girls bent closer with excitement. Alan, puzzled by their reactions, asked what became so significant about it. With a knowing grin, Margaret explained, "When a noble lady gives a handkerchief sewn with her crest, it's required for the knight she trusts most." The girls explained that receiving a noblewoman's embroidered handkerchief required a public declaration of belonging. Alan was left speechless, flustered. Alan tried to downplay the circumstance. Meanwhile, the girls joked with him, making the meaning even clearer. Alan recalled the Duke's remarks. Anna, as a Duke's daughter, would single-time expression a political marriage. Despite all, Anna grinned and comforted him. They promised to guard single another, whichever happened arrived next. Rumors swirled in the Westerdale realm after Prince Claude became expelled, a move viewed as punishment for a disgraceful duel. Some speculated that love pushed Claude's deeds, as he willingly took responsibility for Amy and walked away. Yet deeper motives emerged: fright that Amy would abandon their realm, triggering unrest and collapse. With Estonian troops poised to exploit the strain, the question arose: would Westerdale ally with them or stay loyal? Coldly, Single Voice suggested dividing the country with Estonia might be preferable to preserving a fragile sovereignty. Doubt crept in as suspicion arose that Prince Claude might already be coordinating with Estonia behind the scenes. Alan considered the script from the original game: Estonia invades, Amy escapes, and Westerdale leads a counterattack. However, that timeline appeared unlikely. Now Alan possessed altered incidents, and Amy's sainthood had been used to manipulate the realm's support. News then arrived from the south. Conrad, the eldest child, had came back house in haste. The Ramslet territory bordering South Estonia's ally became mobilizing, raising fears that South was aligning itself for conflict. Encircled by alliances on all sides, the threat of northern aggression added another layer of danger to their position. Despite the strain, military response became constrained by timing. Nothing could be done until after the harvest season. In the midst of strategy and uncertainty, Alan humbly offered his support to Amy, reaffirming his loyalty as a common-born student. Time passed silently at the school. The second year unfolded without disruption after the expulsion of the former villainess. Though the social order shifted, Amy's surroundings stayed calm. Only Prince Claude's absence identified a notable alter. Around the school, the second prince's faction began deliberately distancing itself from the royal prince's allies. Political strain from the kingdom palace seeped into student existence, raising concerns and murmurs of deeper schemes. Anastasia approached Alan, inviting him for a walk under the pretense of easy conversation. She showed her research interest and exploration of explorers and their impact within the realm's structure. When she asked for an introduction to the association, Alan paused, unsettled by the unexpected notice from its intimidating members. Anastasia joked with Alan playfully, pretending to be offended by his delay, only to brush it off with a grin. As the summer research began, she mentioned that Isabella and Margaret would labor together on literature, drawing knowing smiles from nearby classmates. Alan noticed Anna begun smiling more frequently, likely a result of her growing bond with the girls. Afterwards, she appeared dressed in basic village attire, uncertain about the necessity of her disguise. On the road, Alan explained the outfit became arranged by Sebastian, prompting Anna to remark on her unusual act of sneaking out. Anna's circumstances shifted noticeably following her duel and broken betrothal with the royal prince. Though reluctant to hide, she agreed the need to remain discreet while her kin stayed neutral in the kingdom conflict. During their walk past city, Alan and Anna encountered a wary figure, prompting Alan's watchful response. A group of elite students appeared, bravely asserting they would eliminate monsters and ask for directions to the village. However, the cloaked young woman's soft confession showed an uncomfortable truth: there were no monsters, exposing a misunderstanding or something deeper. Strain broke out as the cloaked young woman yelled her innocence, but Marx furiously charged her of lying to the fake king. Meanwhile, Alan and Anna wandered the roads until an unexpected gasp showed someone had recognized them. An unknown young woman challenged Anna, convinced she was interfering with her divine blessing once again. Alan, bewildered by the accusation, tried to understand what blessing required, only to witness the cloaked young woman prepare for a desperate move. Without notice, she lunged at Alan, knocking him down while Anna saw in stunned disbelief. Alan recognized the young woman's voice and was stunned to realize it was Cheryl Laura, someone he hadn't expected to see here. She confirmed her identity without delay, swiftly turning the circumstance in her help. Cheryl charged the other students of threatening her, asserting they planned to steal her funds, stating they became only following a prophecy obtained by Amy and were acting accordingly. The prophecy demanded the elf village be saved from a monster attack. and Cheryl's appearance misled them into thinking she became part of it, irritated. Cheryl strongly rejected being attacked by any monster, demanding they stop bothering her. Anastasia walked forward with authority, condemning the group for trying robbery within city limits. Carl, realizing the circumstance became turning against them, ordered to withdraw, though visibly irritated. He left with a bitter remark and a threat not to forget the incident. Even as they departed, the odd wind conjured during the confrontation stayed. Strain blazed anew when Cheryl demanded to know who the unknown young woman was. Anna, equally annoyed, came back the question with suspicion. Their banter escalated. Cheryl mocked Anna as a little young woman, prompting a fierce rebuttal. Anna bristled at being belittled by someone even shorter. As the group walked, Strain blazed once more. Cheryl demanded Alan's support in the ongoing spat, while Anna issued a kingdom challenge asking about her opponent's identity. Not long after, Alan withdrew to the association, seeking a scene of peace. He crouched in a soft corridor while others checked on him. Association member explained Alan's withdrawal, amused by his entanglement in what he called a lover's quarrel between two fiery women. When Alan stayed silent, the teasing escalated. Another member charged him of eavesdropping, forcing Alan to respond to their light-hearted accusations. Within the room, Alan tried to regain calm. He invited Cheryl to clear her hood, hoping to work the atmosphere. Cheryl finally removed her hood, exposing her elven ears. Alan presented her as the daughter of the ruler of elves, stunning Anna, who hadn't understood she was the royal court. Anna, caught off guard by the revelation, swiftly apologized for her earlier behavior. To smooth over the strain, Alan explained that in the elven village, rank held no weight, and nobles and commoners became treated equally, something Anna found unusual. Brightly, Cheryl shifted the mood by inviting Alan to a summer festival held in her village, clearly excited to extend the invitation, though her unexpected look and effort alarmed all. She explained that the festival was rare, occurring only once every 10 seasons, and she believed Alan. Cheryl excitedly agreed to accompany Alan, eager to ride the flying ship after the festival. Anna silently looked on the exchange. Anna, suppressing irritation, demanded an account. Alan paused, realizing he could no longer hide the truth. Meanwhile, a clerk member found an unconscious boy in the hall, apparently punished for eavesdropping. Anastasia's voice cut past the room as she demanded to know Alan's connection to the elf. Without delay, the elf showed Alan's role in their village. To her, he wasn't just a stranger, he became someone who possessed once saved them. She explained how Alan defended their citizens from malevolent energy. Strain rose as light-hearted accusations filled the sky. Anastasia questioned the elf's influence, while Alan, clearly shaken, tried to deflect the teasing with visible frustration. With a confident grin, the elf shifted the mood. She bent forward, inviting them to attend the village's upcoming summer festival. Ending the discussion on a lighter note, Alan questioned how Cheryl managed to enter the city unnoticed. Though willing to attend the festival, he appeared uneasy about her appearance. With an easy gesture, Cheryl claimed she simply walked past the gate, treating the circumstance as if it were nothing unusual. Concerned, Alan cautioned her of the stake. Exposure could lead to the elven village's secret being showed, a danger neither of them could ignore. Cheryl, bewildered by the haste, asked if humans truly posed that kind of threat. Alan clarified the true danger wasn't just hostility but discovery. Though she brushed it off with a grin, Alan stayed serious. Her luck wouldn't last forever, and single error could compromise all. Before departing, Alan paused and asked whether Anastasia could accompany them. She stayed soft, processing the petition. He proposed using the noble's gate, reasoning that her appearance would prevent suspicion. The strategy hinged on her consent to Alan. It became the safest route out of city. However, the idea of a human entering the elven village sparked immediate opposition. Cheryl, thoughtful yet amused, suggested an alternative: they could pretend Anastasia became Alan's fiancé. Flustered but compliant, Anastasia agreed. If that became the condition, she would play the role, however embarrassing it seemed. Alan apologized, worried the strategy might problems Anastasia, but she stayed steady, seeing it as a valuable chance to understand elven existence firsthand. Without delay, she excused herself to prepare, requesting logistical questions along the way. Her unexpected enthusiasm left Alan a little bewildered. An hour afterward, the group gathered beside a sleek aircraft. Cheryl beamed with dignity as she presented it as Alan's flying ship. Astonished, Anastasia questioned if it truly soared. The elf assured her that it would, empowered by the divine wind's blessing. With goggles in hand, Cheryl expected guidance. Alan paused, caught off guard by her readiness. Perched solely on the rear of the aircraft, Cheryl yelled, bewildered why no single else had joined her. Alan calmly explained that others would sit up front, He assured her the seat became special chosen for its scenic sight but asked her to keep it secret to avoid upsetting Anastasia. Rather than complain, Cheryl smiled, praising Alan's cleverness. The other stayed unsure of what he possessed whispered. To balance the weight, Anastasia became instructed to ride behind Alan. She climbed aboard and wrapped her arms around him. Though embarrassing, she pressed it was fine, waving off the close contact and weight as necessary. The aircraft lifted off with a powerful surge, soaring into the sky as the group braced for flight. Astonishment filled their faces as clouds hurried former. Cheryl marveled at the speed and altitude, calling out in excitement. From above, the kingdom metropolis appeared remote and miniature. Anastasia clung tighter, surprised by the scale of the sight below. Alan explained the journey would care for 4 hours, promising they'd reach the elven village by sunset despite the cramped conditions. Though pressed together, Anastasia glanced at him with admiration, silently acknowledging Alan's brilliance and resolve. As the aircraft descended, the elves below recognized Alan and confirmed Cheryl's safety. But bewilderment stirred when they noticed a third figure aboard. Surprise rippled past the group a human became with them. Murmurs swiftly spread among the watchers. Stepping out of the aircraft, Anastasia obtained hesitant praise for the elves. Seeing another human besides Alan became unsettling. Curiosity grew. While villagers marveled at the sky journey, Anastasia remained tall, absorbing the reality of the elven village. Afterward that evening, they were welcomed by the ruler of elves herself, who politely asked about the unknown young woman by Alan's side. With calm conviction, Alan presented Anastasia as someone dear to him. His remarks caused her gazes to widen in surprise. The ruler responded with subtle amusement, softly repeating the term precious as she looked on them both. Though initially uncertain, the ruler agreed Alan's account. The atmosphere lightened a little, though curiosity lingered. Anastasia formally presented herself, presenting her noble status with grace. Her manner appeared to ease some strain, but the ruler's tone shifted. She questioned whether Anastasia understood the reasons behind the elven village's loneliness from humans, hinting at deeper truths forward. The ruler questioned Anastasia's aims. Despite knowing the village's loneliness possessed, she still chosen to accompany Alan. Alan attempted to explain their circumstances, stepping in before Anastasia could respond, but strain lingered in the sky. She softly asked for to speak with Anastasia solely. Alan and the others became asked to step beyond. Under the moonlight, Alan thought quietly. Doubts crept in what became being said behind closed doors, and possessed he created the right decision. But as recollections of their flight came back, he comforted himself. No, bringing Anastasia here became something he believed in. Under the moonlight, Alan remained silently lost in thought. His mind came back to Anastasia and what she required to him now. Originally, his task became to help others, but somehow she possessed becomes central to his thoughts. That work period alarmed him more than he expected. His contemplation became interrupted by the look of Lo-chan, the lively spirit of light, who immediately scolded him once again. The misunderstanding escalated as a youthful young woman arrived. Another elf questioned Alan's behavior, adding to the uproar. Meanwhile, Lo gleamed with curiosity, eager to meet the said wife Alan possessed supposedly brought along. Alan swiftly clarified that Anastasia wasn't a child, nor just a comrade. Lo joked with him anyway, insisting she understood him well. Millie rushed up, requesting for a hug. Alan, flustered, complied while Lo loudly announced him a valued companion, though not without mockery. Meanwhile, within the ruler continued her soft conversation with Anastasia. She asked if she understood the cause elves hid from humans. Anastasia responded solemnly. She recognized the cruelty of humans capturing elves for their beauty, treating them as possessions. The ruler cautioned her exposure would bring danger. Alan could be targeted just for knowing them. The ruler calmly cautioned Anastasia that her choice to come place not only Alan, but her own kin in danger. Despite knowing the risks Anastasia had come, her heart paused as recollections of Alan stirred emotions she couldn't ignore. Shaken, she struggled to voice the truth. Her feelings, though true, seemed like a forbidden burden. Kneeling before the village elder, Anastasia paused before speaking. A single name escaped her lips: Alan, the single person who continued to problems her heart. The elder closed her gazes, pointing out the reality Anastasia knew too well. Rather than denying the bond, the elder softly proposed another path. A peaceful existence alongside Alan in the village, a proposal of fate undisturbed by status. Support from the villagers was obvious. They cherished Alan and wished him happiness, even if it required abandoning all bound to the human realm. As the daughter of a noble house rose on the sacrifices of others, she could not choose love over responsibility. Faced with the impossible choice, Anastasia struggled to imagine a path that included both love and responsibility. The elder confronted her, suggesting such a path might still exist. Rather than choosing single over the other, the elder proposed something bold, serving the citizens with Alan. A thought emerged: if that fate became possible, wouldn't it be ideal? Doubt crept in, not about herself, but about what Alan truly desired. The elder, watching closely, sensed the weight Anastasia held. To her, the youthful noblewoman appeared overly weighed down by self-sacrifice. With soft gazes, she pressed Anastasia to breathe, to listen inwardly and stop running from her own feelings. As she walked out into the corridor, Anastasia softly called Alan's name. He turned to her, surprised but attentive, his voice calm and welcoming. Abruptly, a group of bright children welcomed her under the moonlight. Single boy beamed with happiness, requesting if her talk with the ruler had finished. Flustered by the encounter, Anastasia tried to compose herself. She pressed nothing was incorrect, though her reddened expression said otherwise. The boy presented a youthful young woman as Miral Lore, daughter of the ruler, and mentioned a spirit named Lo. Anastasia couldn't see it. Perplexed, she agreed the account. Meanwhile, the tiny spirit hovered nearby, unimpressed by the clumsy introduction. Anastasia formally presented herself to the spirit of light, speaking with grace and composure. The spirit responded with curiosity, its look shifting with interest. Without notice, a swarm of tiny energy gathered around Anastasia, circling her intently. Something about her appearance had caught their notice. An eerie strain filled the sky. Suspicion arose when the ruler's daughter questioned Alan about Anastasia's identity. Her noble lineage was unmistakable. Exposing her connection, the child calmly explained she had once taught sorcery to Anastasia's mom, Rear, when she was just a young woman. Meanwhile, Alan grew uneasy as he understood Anastasia couldn't listen to the spirit's voice. Miral Lore extended her arms, quietly requesting a hug, bewildered. Anastasia paused until someone softly explained the child's intention. With some awkwardness, she came Alan's instructions and came back the hug. The scene, though unknown, warmed her protected heart. As they remained together, others saw from the side. The child's bond softened suspicions, and even those once skeptical began to see Anastasia differently. Amused murmurs broke out about status and love. The idea of a noble and a common-born student together stirred talk of forbidden romance, but someone warned them this was an elven village. Secret from the human realm here, no single would judge what blossomed. The mischievous spirit joked with Alan once again, amused by his reactions and hinting at his growing bond to Anastasia. Lying in bed, Alan recalled the remarks spoken earlier. This village was safe, secret from beyond judgment. Still, the implications lingered in his thoughts elsewhere. Anastasia sat solely beneath the moonlight, reflecting on her role and emotions. For the first time, she allowed herself a scene of vulnerability. The next time, the village buzzed with excitement as the festival began. Interested elves greeted newcomers and ate their traditions. Anastasia, now dressed for the occasion, remained beside Alan. Compliments and teasing flowed as the villagers commented on her beauty and their closeness. Alan heard as the villagers explained the unique tradition of the festival. The boy protects the lady as they run together, saw over by energy. He learned that properly defending the symbolic tiara during the event brought blessings. The meaning seemed ambiguous, yet somehow significant. Anastasia appeared, now dressed in ceremonial robes. Though bewildered by the details, she sensed the activity involved partnership, something not easily rejected. Neither fully grasping the rules, they agreed to join. After all, they became already part of the village's rhythm. Together, they came the others deeper into the heart of the celebration, interested and uncertain. Yet walking side by side, romance bloomed around the festival grounds as couples ate soft moments. Alan and Anastasia, remaining stiffly among them, could only watch in quiet. Feeling the pressure of the audience, they nervously agreed to skip the affectionate traditions. Their awkwardness was mutual and obvious. As music filled the sky, the two were drawn into the middle of the assembly. A host invited all to join the circle without delay. Uncertain, they looked on the dancing but chose to follow along. Alan couldn't proposal answers, only a shrug and patience. Instructions finally arrived. Don't let the tiara get dirty and just run. The true game was about to begin. With the beat of drums rising, the elf villagers rallied, shouting in excitement. The challenge became about to begin in full power. Alan and Anastasia looked around nervously as the villagers advanced, baskets in hand and expressions oddly serious. Just as bewilderment peaked, acceleration sorcery launched the participants forward. Single elf grinned and simply wished them luck. Alan grabbed Anastasia's hand and rushed. The goal became now obvious: guard the tiara, avoid getting hit, and survive the onslaught of flying fruit. A second afterward, Alan took a direct hit to the expression. The trial had officially begun. Despite the stinging fruit assault, Alan pressed Anastasia to guard the tiara. He comforted her with a bleeding grin. It didn't hurt much. An unexpected burst of water sorcery slammed into them. Alan shielded Anastasia, bewildered by the mystic escalation. Single villager smiled and yelled the rule anything goes as long as it's harmless. Commotion was fair play. With Anastasia injured, Alan pulled her close and unleashed a smoke screen, buying them precious seconds. Lifting her in his arms, Alan created the call. There became no time to hesitate. They possessed to keep running. Alan finally halted under cover, seeing Anastasia down softly. Flustered, he apologized while she asked to be released. Soaked but still holding the tiara, Anastasia became relieved it stayed intact. Silently, she wondered if she possessed been too heavy. Alan swiftly rejected the worry, asserting he could carry her for hours. The comment resounded around them, drawing teasing laughs from nearby villagers. Even the tiny energy were moved, reenacting dramatic declarations of love and support, their light-hearted exaggerations echoing past the sky. But the break finished swiftly. Guided by a villager, Anastasia took Alan's hand and pulled him rear into the dash. Alan used wind sorcery to shield them from incoming fruit. Encircled and shaken, he held Anastasia and looked for cover. Their pursuers closed in with fresh power. Despite exhaustion, Alan held steady, refusing to surrender as strain escalated. Encircled by enemies, Alan stayed steady with Anna at his side. He kept her close, bracing for the confrontation forward as the attackers closed in with confidence. Without delay, he pinned Anna against a nearby tree, using his form to block any incoming threat. The enemies hurled their weapons with harsh smiles. Anna could only watch in fright as Alan shielded her from the assault, fighting to stay upright. Alan began chanting. He focused his mana, resolved to hold out until time expired. A surge of power burst forth, his spell launched. The ice spear struck single enemy, directly halting their advance. Anna's voice trembled as she challenged Alan, asking about the meaning of his sacrifice. Her worry became not for the outcome, but for his safety. Abruptly, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the strain. Alan turned, alarmed by the interruption. A lady walked forward, announcing the termination of the trial as a ceremonial bell rang in the distance. The ordeal was officially over. Anna dropped into Alan, shaken by relief. Meanwhile, single of the elves apologized for acting on impulse, challenging her mother's judgment. Their efforts didn't go unnoticed. Praise came from the officials, and Alan could only respond with soft gratitude. A festive atmosphere encircled Alan and Anna as the audience gathered for the next part of the ceremony. Decorative poles swayed in the breeze while soft murmurs filled the square. Officials announced that those who protected the tiara must return 10 seasons afterward for another job. Alan and Anna became called forward, still unsure of what expected them. Bewildered by the instructions, they paused. Murmurs and glances confirmed something unusual became about to happen again. Cheering broke out as the audience pressed them to perform a ritual. Embarrassment washed over them. Meeting gazes, they reluctantly agreed to go along, encircled by watchers. They remained side by side. As they remained inches apart, Anna paused, alerting Alan he wasn't obligated. Still, he agreed, insisting they continue, even if just for show. Their lips connected briefly before pulling apart, the gesture leaving both broadly watched. The surrounding audience faded into the minor. Alan looked away, cheeks flushed, unsure how to procedure what just happened. Anna stayed silent, her look mixed with bewilderment and understanding. Abruptly, a strange young woman appeared, recognizing herself as the daughter of Elizabeth and Gerhard. Both Alan and Anna were stunned. She presented herself as Loringas, the spirit of light and a descendant of a fabled sage. Her appearance shifted the mood entirely. The spirit of light turned to Anna, acknowledging her unwavering will. She offered her divine blessing without delay, promising protection from both herself and the spirit Loringas. She entrusted Anna with Alan's fate. Grateful Anna agreed the responsibility with a soft nod. As terms spread, the audience broke out in surprise and praise. Receiving such a blessing, especially for a human, became unheard of. Afterward, Alan found solace in the soft of a hot spring. The festival became far from over, but he required a break. Reflecting in the steam, Alan understood the entire event became a ceremony for choosing partners. He wondered how Anna would feel if she'd known. Anna unexpectedly went into the hot spring, wrapped in a towel. Alan turned in alarm, calling her name in disbelief. Realizing the circumstance, he frantic, asking about if the washroom was mixed. Embarrassed, he tried to reason himself. Anna halted him. Though flustered, she pressed it became fine as long as he didn't look her way. Separated by a rock, the two silently ate the space. Alan muttered that the elves really hadn't explained things properly. Looking at the peaceful night sky, Anna showed her fondness for the village. Alan agreed, smiling at the warmth they both seemed. At the celebration, elves ate their values, no nobles, no taxes, just equality, all lived peacefully, without greed or hierarchy. Anna heard in quiet, shaken by the fairness of the elven society. Questions swirled in her mind about humanity's failure to achieve the same. As Alan called her formally, Anna corrected him. Her voice became soft but steady. Just Anna was enough. Wetness glimmered in her gazes as she questioned whether rank mattered in this village here. Titles held no weight. She confessed her wish to simply be Anastasia, not a duke's daughter. Alan stopped, then softly replied, "Anna." She grinned, finally seen for who she became. With flushed cheeks, Anna asked Alan to bead titles and just be himself. Her voice became steady yet vulnerable, hoping for honesty between equals. Moved by her remarks, Alan embraced her. Under the moonlight, the two ate a soft kiss, wrapped in each other's warmth. Elsewhere, the spirit of light saw quietly. Her soft grin recognized the bond that had just worsened between the two. Afterward that night, Alan lay awake while Anna slept beside him. Thoughts lingered on all that had changed. As they talked in the dim recollections resurfaced of a fleeting meeting in childhood, both finally understood they possessed crossed paths long ago. They held each other in quiet, wrapped in the warmth of 8 emotions. Alan awoke slowly, the calm of the morning sun filtering past the paper window. His thoughts lingered on the night before. Anna stirred beside him, teasing him softly for waking up delayed. They shared soft greetings, unsure of what to say next. As she remained up, Anna deflected the strain with blame, telling him it became his fault. Alan could only stammer in response. Sitting down, Anna warned him once more, no more titles. Just Anna. Alan agreed, grasping her completely now. Before leaving the village, Alan halted Anna. He possessed single more location he wanted her to see. They arrived at a soft lake on the outskirts, hand in hand. The calm water thought the peace they both seemed. Anna grinned and pointed to the many energy dancing above the surface. Alan called her name, hesitating, trying to apologize for the night before. He walked in over his remarks. Anna halted him strongly, reluctant to let awkwardness ruin what they had. Looking out over the lake, Alan created a promise. Someday, he would make the Duke's recognition no matter how long it took. With conviction in his voice, Alan promised to achieve something worthy so he could stand before Anna proudly. No matter what, he promised to guard her. Though unsure of the timing, he pulled out a ring, admitting it became out of order. He asked her to marry him. Anna's gazes welled up with emotion, and with a radiant grin, she said yes. Encircled by luminous energy, the two embraced. A fresh chapter silently began. Afterward that time, they ready to depart. Anna wore a fairy's ornament, a token of truth. Their hearts became prepared for what lay forward. Alan and Anna flew toward the kingdom metropolis, knowing it would be the last time they could forget their roles. Though reluctant, they agreed it became time to return. Upon arrival, Alan was called. A stern boy challenged him, requesting if he understood why he had been called. The atmosphere shifted, calm became replaced by strain. Alan watches Anna unleash swift blade strikes, cutting through charging bats as the monsters dive toward them relentlessly without hesitation. After finishing the attack, Anna lowers her weapon while Alan confirms every bat has been defeated, leaving the path clear. Together, they continue deeper into the cave before Alan offers water and suggests a brief rest before facing the boss. Anna drinks gratefully and catches her breath while Alan quietly observes her recovering strength before moving onward once more confidently. Earlier, Alan met an elderly man who noticed his ring and questioned its unusual origin, beginning an important conversation together. Alan explains that he personally gave the ring to Anastasia, leaving her father shocked and questioning why she wears it. Anger erupts as the Duke scolds Alan, warning him not to grow close to his daughter despite their previous connection. Remaining calm, Alan argues the ring protected Anastasia's dignity after the duel and prevented greater disgrace for her noble family. Alan reveals the ring is a rare substitution ring, capable of saving its wearer by taking a fatal blow once. Realizing its immense value, Anastasia recognizes the legendary artifact while Alan modestly accepts that such a priceless gift deserves noble recognition. Alan advises Anastasia to keep wearing the ring, then presents rare treasures from the Wind Mountain dungeon to prove where he found it. Impressed by the evidence, the Duke listens as Alan explains his goal of earning military achievements and obtaining a noble title. Alan firmly declares that he seeks the right to stand beside Anastasia and protect her for the rest of his life. After hearing his determination, the Duke grants Alan 3 years to prove his worth through genuine accomplishments. The Duke warns Alan that harsh battlefields await and forbids any deeper relationship with Anastasia until he succeeds. While Alan calmly accepts the challenge, Alan tests his firearm by defeating another monster, proving his unique fighting style despite lacking talent with the sword. Anna promises to protect Alan in close combat while he explains that magic and firearms are the only abilities he can truly rely on. Alan reveals he entered the dungeon to strengthen Anna, believing her growth will protect both the duchy and herself during future battles. Reaching the boss chamber, Alan asks Anna to witness the upcoming fight while she confidently prepares to observe his strategy. Together they step into the final chamber, where the powerful Blizzard Phoenix awaits as their greatest challenge begins. The Blizzard Phoenix charges fiercely, but Alan calmly instructs Anna to keep her shield raised while he prepares the decisive attack. Timing the opening perfectly, Alan fires a precise shot that strikes the Phoenix's weak point as Anna blocks its assault. The Blizzard Phoenix crashes to the ground moments later, and Alan confirms the battle ended after his attack hit the vital spot. Standing beside the enormous corpse, Alan and Anna begin collecting the valuable magic stone tail and wing feathers. Alan offers the precious magic stone to Anna, insisting they earn the victory together and she deserves the greatest reward. Alan explains that helping Anna conquer the labyrinth will strengthen her reputation and bring greater honor to her family's duchy. After taking a short break, Anna notices the treasure chest and Alan reveals that someone has already opened it earlier. Searching through the remaining items, Alan suddenly discovers an extraordinary sword hidden inside the dungeon's rewards. Alongside a useful magic bag, Alan identifies the magnificent blade as the true treasure left within the labyrinth. Anna carefully examines the legendary Sky Knight's sword, astonished that such a priceless weapon had been waiting inside the dungeon. Alan offers the legendary Sky Knight's sword to Anna, believing she deserves its power despite its incredible value. Although Anna hesitates because the sword is a national treasure, Alan explains it is an early birthday present for her. Alan warmly says he wants his first birthday gift for the woman who accepted his proposal to be unforgettable. Touched by his sincerity, Anna thanks Alan, while he promises to give her the sword again on her next birthday if necessary. Resting in the dungeon afterward, Anna confirms they are finally alone before suddenly leaning close, leaving Alan completely surprised. Embarrassed after finding themselves alone, Anna quietly confirms nobody else is nearby before both awkwardly decide to continue exploring the labyrinth. After completing several dungeon runs, Alan helps Anna finish her training before returning to the Duke's estate with their hard-earned spoils. The Duke accepts their report, promises to register the completed quest, and reminds Alan to keep his distance from Anna. Alan respectfully agrees, keeping their growing relationship secret while remaining determined to honor the Duke's conditions. With only 2 vacation days remaining, Alan and Anna travel toward the Valley of the Flying Dragons to meet Melissa and Jerome safely. While flying toward the Valley of the Flying Dragons, Alan notices Anna speaking differently and gently asks why her tone has suddenly changed. Anna nervously wonders whether men prefer polite, noble speech, admitting she fears her usual way of speaking sounds unpleasant. Alan reassures Anna that he values her true personality and wants an honest relationship instead of forced formal manners. Relieved by his answer, Anna agrees to speak naturally, saving her formal tone only for important occasions. During the journey, Anna explains that years serving the prince shaped her speech, though she hopes to return to her natural self someday. Alan jokingly says that if Anna marries him, her formal speech will gradually disappear, leaving her completely flustered by the unexpected remark. Before Anna can recover from her embarrassment, a fierce wyvern suddenly swoops toward their aircraft, forcing both of them into immediate battle. Alan's aircraft is suddenly chased by a wyvern, placing everyone aboard in immediate danger as the beast closes in. Alan calls to the wyvern, hoping it recognizes him, but the creature continues its fierce pursuit through the valley. A black sky dragon suddenly appears, intercepting the wyvern and forcing it away before it reaches Alan's group. The sky dragon safely approaches Alan's aircraft, astonishing everyone as Jerome arrives to protect them. After landing, Alan thanks Jerome for the timely rescue. While the grateful sky dragon reunites peacefully with its trusted companions, Alan introduces Jerome to Anastasia, explaining they became friends after many adventures and Jerome evolved into a powerful sky dragon. Jerome curiously observes Anastasia, while Melissa arrives and everyone realizes another unexpected dragon companion has appeared. Alan asks about recent events, learning humans attacked the valley after a strange pink-haired woman stirred trouble among the wyverns. After hearing the situation, Alan requests Jerome to protect Anastasia whenever she faces danger, and Jerome gladly accepts the responsibility. Jerome assumes Anastasia is Alan's future partner, leaving her flustered while Alan confidently promises to earn her family's approval someday. Jerome misunderstands Alan's relationship with Anastasia and suggests eliminating anyone who refuses to acknowledge him, leaving both of them completely shocked. Anastasia immediately scolds Jerome's dangerous thinking, while the embarrassed sky dragon quickly apologizes for the misunderstanding and calms down. Jerome asks her to remember Anastasia's scent so he can recognize and protect her whenever she needs help in the future. Melissa supports Jerome's promise to guard Anastasia, while both dragons gently memorize her scent, making her blush with embarrassment. Grateful for Jerome's loyalty, Alan rewards him with delicious orc meat from his magic bag, and the dragons happily accept the generous gift. Jerome misunderstands Alan's relationship with Anastasia and suggests eliminating anyone who refuses to acknowledge him, leaving both of them completely shocked. Anastasia immediately scolds Jerome's dangerous thinking, while the embarrassed sky dragon quickly apologizes for the misunderstanding and calms down. Jerome asks to remember Anastasia's scent so he can recognize and protect her whenever she needs help in the future. Melissa supports Jerome's promise to guard Anastasia, while both dragons gently memorize her scent, making her blush with embarrassment. Grateful for Jerome's loyalty, Alan rewards him with delicious orc meat from his magic bag, and the dragons happily accept the generous gift. Rumors about Anastasia's gifts spread throughout the academy, yet she firmly refused to reveal the person who had given them to her. Ami suddenly confronted Anastasia, claiming the fairy hair ornament belonged to her and demanding that it be returned immediately. Anastasia calmly refused, insisting the ornament had been entrusted to her by someone important and could never be surrendered to anyone else. The prince and Amy's supporters sided against Anastasia, while Alan stepped forward, explaining the accessory had a special meaning for her. Ignoring Alan's words, an angry student lunged toward Anastasia, escalating the dispute into a dangerous confrontation before everyone present. The fairy hair ornament suddenly released powerful magic, knocking the attacker away before Anastasia could be harmed and leaving everyone in complete shock. Mysterious voices echoed through the hallway, declaring Anastasia the spirit's chosen child and warning against anyone attempting to steal her proof. Ami panicked as her plan collapsed, insisting everything had been ruined because she believed she was destined to become a saint. Alan firmly defended Anastasia, declaring the fairy hair ornament rightfully belonged to her regardless of Amy's desperate claims. Alan urged Amy to face reality, reminding her that everyone before her was alive and that her delusions could no longer deceive anyone. Alan told Amy that everyone in the royal capital was living their own lives, not following a predetermined story or destiny. Believing the conflict had finally ended, Alan expected Amy to reflect on her actions and stop causing trouble for everyone. Alan invited Anastasia to lunch, but she quietly admitted she had recently been searching for places where they could spend time alone together. Their classmates welcomed them to eat outside, where everyone enjoyed a peaceful meal while chatting about simple daily routines. During lunch, Prince Oscar approached Anastasia and handed her a sealed letter from the king, requesting an immediate response. Anastasia accepted the royal summons, promising to visit His Majesty soon before respectfully sending the prince on his way. After the prince departed, Anastasia revealed she had been ordered to report to the royal castle the following day, leaving everyone curious about the unexpected summons. Anastasia explained the royal order would keep her away for about a week while everyone teased how reluctant she was to leave Alan behind. Alan promised to help Anastasia catch up on missed lessons, unaware that their cheerful lunch together would become their last for some time. Alone, Amy secretly smiled, believing Anastasia's absence would help restore the villainess role while creating trouble for Alan's plans. Anastasia departed after the academy announced her official assignment from the king, leaving Alan to wait for her return. A week passed, then several more days, yet Anastasia still had not returned, leaving Alan increasingly worried that something had gone wrong. Alan visited the Duke after Anastasia's prolonged absence, where he learned His Majesty had never summoned her despite the official-looking royal decree. The forged order revealed Anastasia had been forced into marriage with Gunther Werner, a commander from the East Empire, using the king's stolen seal. Further investigation exposed another forged decree, while the crown prince refused to testify, despite knowing the truth behind the incident. Realizing everything, Alan angrily concluded that the kingdom had effectively handed Anastasia over to its enemy through deception. Worse still, news arrived that the East Empire had declared war, and reports claimed the peace convoy carrying Anastasia had been ambushed and destroyed. Alan assured the Duke that Anastasia was likely still alive, believing the Empire had abducted her to justify its invasion rather than kill her. Remaining calm despite the crisis, the Duke concluded the forged decree had delivered Anastasia into enemy hands and demanded swift action. The Duke ordered Alan to join the student mobilization, allowing him to enter the Empire legally as a soldier and search for Anastasia. Accepting the mission without hesitation, Alan promised to bring Anastasia home, fulfilling the Duke's request as both an adventurer and loyal ally. Although military rules would restrict Alan's movements, the Duke prepared another plan and entrusted Sebas to explain the details the following day. Leaving the Duke's residence, Alan reflected on the betrayal, convinced the forged decree and the East Empire's cruelty, confirmed the Duke's judgment. Alan's anger grew as he blamed the Crown Prince for allowing Anastasia to be handed over to the enemy through deception. The next morning, Alan quietly gathered information while learning Isabella had testified about the suspicious royal letter delivered to Anastasia. Isabella revealed several students had also been questioned because they opposed the Crown Prince, suggesting the investigation was still expanding. Although Alan concealed the truth about Anastasia, he suspected her disappearance and the war declaration were closely connected, strengthening his resolve to rescue her. Alan continued believing Anastasia would return safely while patiently gathering every clue about her disappearance instead of losing hope. A witness revealed Anastasia's carriage left the East Gate before she secretly escaped, proving the destroyed carriage had only been a decoy. Sebastian concluded Anastasia had likely transferred to another carriage, making it unlikely that ordinary kidnappers had captured someone of her strength. More testimonies confirmed Anastasia had reached the royal castle, prompting the Duke to openly accuse the Crown Prince of orchestrating her abduction. As Alan organized the growing evidence, Amy approached him with a mocking smile, provoking him by mentioning Anastasia's supposed marriage in the Empire. Amy mocked Anastasia's disappearance as inevitable, but Alan confronted her, suspecting she had manipulated the tragedy from the very beginning. Smiling confidently, Amy claimed everything was following the original scenario where the villainess would eventually fall before the story's heroes. Amy declared Alan had already lost, ridiculing him as an insignificant extra who could never change the world's destined outcome. After laughing at Alan's despair, Amy walked away satisfied, leaving him furious over her cruel enjoyment of Anastasia's suffering. Alone, Alan blamed himself for becoming overconfident, realizing his earlier victories had made him overlook the growing dangers surrounding Anastasia. Overwhelmed by guilt, Alan blamed himself for Anastasia's disappearance, swore to rescue her, yet struggled to find the path that would lead him to her. Alan learns the kingdom has entered war with the Est Empire far earlier than the original game's timeline, making him fear the coming tragedy. Remembering the original scenario, Alan recalls Anastasia would eventually fall into darkness and lead the Imperial army after suffering exile. Refusing to accept that fate, Amy pleads for peace, believing Anastasia would never wish for innocent people to suffer. Stepping before everyone, Amy encourages understanding instead of violence, inspiring several students to support her compassionate appeal. Her hopeful message quickly spreads across the hall as more people rally behind peace, giving Alan a reason to believe fate can still change. Amy's peaceful proposal receives mixed reactions while Alan realizes the original game's storyline has already changed beyond his expectations. As confusion spreads, the Academy announces its closure because of the war, leaving students shocked by the sudden disruption. Commander Otto von Junks urges every capable student to defend the kingdom against the Est Empire's unexpected invasion. Many hesitate after the commander's appeal, uncertain whether joining the battlefield is the right decision during the growing crisis breaking the silence. Alan steps forward and volunteers first, determined to protect the kingdom while preventing the tragic future he remembers. Alan's courage inspires other students to volunteer, proving determination matters more than noble status as the selected recruits head for the royal palace. While some nobles avoid enlisting, Alan notices Prince Leonardo remains absent, strengthening doubts about the royal family's commitment to the war. After changing into military uniforms, the volunteers receive apprentice assignments before preparing to meet the king with proper discipline. The king officially welcomes the students into the kingdom's army, wishing them success as they begin their military service. Realizing rear support would keep him from finding Anastasia, Alan boldly requests permission to address the king before leaving the audience hall. Alan earns the king's attention by explaining he serves the kingdom willingly despite his connection to the Ramslet family and requests permission to speak. He urgently asks the king to protect Anastasia and punish everyone responsible for abusing the royal seal and forging the royal decree against her. Although the commander rebukes his bold words, Alan immediately apologizes, admitting he had spoken beyond his place before the throne. Refusing to withdraw completely, Alan asks to be sent to the front lines, hoping to prove his loyalty through battlefield service. The king questions Alan's true allegiance, but Alan firmly declares his devotion to the kingdom and pledges himself to his majesty alone. Impressed by Alan's resolve, the king grants his request, ordering him to the front lines to fight the Est Empire's invading forces. Alan receives orders to defend the fortress city of Chaldacia and reclaim the Bruzini region, promising to request his reward only after victory. The king accepts Alan's determination, offering any reward for success while forbidding his return to the capital until the campaign is won. After Alan leaves, the king privately remarks on his potential, deciding the battlefield will reveal whether the young commoner is truly worthy. Later, Alan confirms the king spared him as expected and quietly prepares to carry out his risky plan despite being branded a traitor. After leaving the palace, Alan returns home and tells his mother he successfully secured a position on the battlefield despite volunteering as a student. Although relieved he will not face immediate danger, Alan's mother notices his concern for Anastasia and gently realizes how deeply he cares for her. Embarrassed by her insight, Alan recalls their recent moments together, confirming his growing feelings without denying them. His mother encourages him to protect Anastasia, reminding him not to worry about her and to rescue the girl he treasures. Left alone afterward, Alan reflects on his mother's advice and carefully decides which priorities must guide his actions from now on. Alan strengthens his resolve to save Anastasia, then asks the dragon Melissa to search for her instead of attacking the royal capital, explaining that human wars should remain humanity's responsibility. Alan convinces Melissa to avoid unnecessary bloodshed and focus only on finding Anastasia. Melissa accepts the mission, promises to locate Anastasia quickly, and encourages Alan to survive while she begins her search. With their plan decided, Melissa flies away to rescue Anastasia as Alan heads toward the front lines to face the coming war. Anastasia receives an urgent royal order while preparing for the day. Realizing the king has summoned her directly instead of contacting the Ramslet Duchy. Although surprised by the unexpected request, Anastasia quickly gets dressed and prepares to leave without delaying the royal summons. Alan arrives as she finishes packing, then wishes her a safe journey before watching her carriage depart toward the royal castle. Before Anastasia can leave, Prince Oscar appears and reminds her that a newly issued royal decree requires her immediate attention as a noble. Confused by the prince's announcement, Anastasia accepts the official document, wondering why another unexpected order has arrived so suddenly. Prince Oscar presents a royal decree ordering Anastasia to marry Commander Gunther Werner of the East Empire. Warning refusal would brand her family as traitors. Despite her doubts, Anastasia accepts the official order, deciding to meet the king first before informing her father and causing unnecessary conflict. While traveling, Anastasia suddenly realizes something is wrong when the carriage changes direction, raising doubts about its true destination. Elsewhere, a blessing Alan once placed on Anastasia briefly activates, alerting others that something unusual has happened. The unexpected signal suggests Anastasia's situation has changed, hinting that the royal order may conceal a dangerous scheme. Anastasia awakens in an unfamiliar underground passage, unable to move as armed men secretly transport her through tunnels beneath the kingdom. She regains consciousness inside a remote hideout where an elderly man reveals she was heavily sedated before the journey. Bound and isolated, Anastasia learns she has been taken to a mountain refuge connected by the royal family's hidden escape route. The kidnappers claim the royal family abandoned her and insist the marriage order only serves the Est Empire's political interests. Their leader orders the men to keep Anastasia alive but permits them to abuse her however they wish. Exposing the captors' cruel intentions, bound but determined, Anastasia attempts to cast ice magic, only to discover her power has completely disappeared before the spell can form. The kidnappers reveal the enchanted ropes suppress all magic, leaving Anastasia unable to defend herself despite her exceptional abilities. Smirking confidently, the captors announce they will escort Anastasia to the imperial capital while mocking her noble spirit and resistance. As the men gather around her, Anastasia struggles desperately against the restraints, refusing to surrender despite her hopeless situation. The kidnappers close in with cruel intentions while Anastasia remains trapped, powerless, and forced to endure the terrifying ordeal alone. Just as the kidnappers approach, an unseen force suddenly hurls them across the room, interrupting their assault on the defenseless Anastasia. The attackers panic in confusion while Anastasia realizes the mysterious power protecting her comes from Rose Blessing activating once again. After one kidnapper dies from the impact, the remaining captors hastily decide to dispose of the body before anyone discovers the incident. Elsewhere, Anastasia recalls a peaceful memory of sharing sweets with Rolinga's sensei, contrasting sharply with her current desperate situation. That treasured memory strengthens Anastasia's resolve, giving her hope to endure until someone finally comes to rescue her. Anastasia remembers Rolinga's sensei teaching gentle wind magic, drawing strength from the memory as she struggles to endure her captivity. Far away, the blessing activates once more, alerting Millie that Anastasia is in danger while Melissa continues searching for her location. Melissa follows Anastasia's scent through the mountains, ignoring thoughts of attacking humans and deciding to inform Alan after finding her. Still tied inside the hideout, Anastasia believes Rolinga's sensei's blessing will protect her, giving her hope that rescue is still possible. At the front, Alan suddenly senses Anastasia's call, immediately preparing to rush toward her without hesitation.